Hi, what's up, fam? It's your boy Governor Jake back, presenting facts over fiction to give you the knowledge you've been missing. Um, Now, family, I know I've been going for a minute. I ain't been as consistent as I've been wanting to be. Those who know me know that I be on the move a lot. You feel me? I was out of the country for a while there. Came back. I was down Philly for a little second there. Right now I'm down south. Right now I'm in Georgia. So you know what I mean? Y'all got to pardon me for not being consistent, but I wanted to definitely hit y'all with some content today. I got a little series I'm going to start, man. We're just going to be reading through PowerNomics by Dr. Claude Anderson. I consider PowerNomics to be the foundational Black American empowerment Bible, so to speak, right? And I know a lot of folks, y'all we love Claude Anderson, you know what I'm saying? He gave us a lot of knowledge, but I know it's a lot of folks that haven't really read his literature. And so I want to go over that with the family. It's been a little while since I read this book. I read this book a couple times, but I don't think I've read it in the last several years, especially not since the FBA movement has kind of taken off. I haven't read it through that lens, right? So this is going to be my first time reading it through that lens, and I want to share it with you guys and maybe come up with some ideas on how we can actually act on this stuff because this book was written. This book was published like 24 years ago, I believe, in 2001, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Claude Anderson was writing this book for maybe a year or two prior to that. So this information is it's pretty dated. I think it's pretty dated, but it's still relevant. And if we act on it and we get our minds right, maybe we can actually produce something here, right? Instead of just sitting online all day talking about tethers and white supremacy or whatever, like, you know what I'm saying? We actually need to start making some moves to actually improve our situation, right? I'm not one for the whole tether white supremacist talk all day long. Like y'all, we got content creators for that, man. Y'all go holler at them, man. For me, one thing I noticed about consuming certain content, it's like I can consume content for a certain amount of time, depending on what it is, man. It could be years it could be years, it could be a few weeks, it could be months, man. But eventually, I'm gonna outgrow it, right? And it may be the content in general, or it may just be a specific creator. It's like I'm gonna outgrow, and it's like I can't check for that no more. You see what I'm saying? Because at certain points, the topics they start to become very redundant. You know what I'm saying? You done heard it all before. And it's like, and it's not a knock to no creators. I understand that people have their niche and they want to stick to that, of course. And the idea is that, hey, some topics will have to be rehashed over and over again for the new folks who wasn't there prior. Well, I ain't new to this. So, you know what I'm saying? Once I start hearing these topics two, three, four times, I cut it off. You know what I'm saying? And when there's certain Twitter spaces or whatever with a bunch of buffoonery, I don't care who it's coming from. I can't listen to that, man. I can't listen to nobody talking to a tether all day long or some white supremacist troll all day long and shit. And we not really getting to no solutions, no actions. It's all like silly nonsense. You see what I'm saying? So that's what we doing over here, man. So what we gonna do? I'm gonna read through chapter one a day, like I said, and we're gonna pause and give my thoughts on certain commentary, and we're gonna make this a series until we get through this book. And then, like I said, I got plenty of books we can. This might be something that I do. You know what I'm saying? Because I like to do it, and it's giving the family some food to eat. You know what I'm saying? Some food for thought, man. Not this garbage that these guys is pushing nowadays, man. I swear, it seems like this movement is like stagnating, man. I get it. We on the delineation thing. That's all these niggas talk about. Delineation, white supremacy tethers. That's all these niggas talk about, man. When we going to talk about what we about to do next? What's the next steps? That's what I'm always like looking for that. What's the next step? Man, these niggas been talking about tethers for years now. Like, Jesus, man, we get it. What's going on, Chelsea Hayes, Pong, Akai? How y'all doing today, man? Let's get some more chats, man. Let's get some more interaction, man. I'm gonna get going, man. I'm gonna start out with this, with a portion of this blurb, right? We're gonna read a little bit of the blurb so we get an idea of what we about to dive into, and then we're gonna get started. All right, so it says here, right, in PowerNomics, Dr. Anderson sifts through realms of data to take a fresh look at education, economics, politics, and religion. He proposes new principles, strategies, and concepts that teach blacks a new way to see, think, and behave in race matters. The new mindset prepares blacks to take strategic steps to create a new reality for their race. He offers action steps to resolve some of the most frequently asked questions about black economic parity. Let me stop here. All right, let me stop here. Like I said, this book was published in 2001. When he says blacks, we're talking about foundational black Americans only. We're not talking about nobody else. All right, and when he talks about concepts that teach blacks a new way to think, see, think, and behave in race matters, we're talking about lineage, ethnicity, ethnic group matters. We ain't talking about race. We talking about foundational black Americans, and we talking about our lineage and ethnic group only. I ain't talking about nobody else. All right, so let's keep it going. So for instance, why are blacks, FBAs, right, the only group that equates success with working in a white corporation, government, or the entertainment industry? How did power and wealth, businesses, resources, privileges, income, and controls of all levels of government get so disproportionately distributed into the hands of white society? Why do visible blacks and black leaders avoid identifying with blackness? What enables an endless stream of immigrant groups to politically, economically, and socially dominate blacks, FBAs? How is it that FBAs can be loyal politically? How is it that blacks can be loyal political supporters, yet their group receives no quid pro quo benefits? Dr. Anderson is widely recognized as one of America's most influential intellectuals and authors. His work has made black history popular with all age groups. His book, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Search of Power and Economic Justice, is the foundation for the programs, policies, and research solutions of the Harvest Institute, a national black think tank, of which he is the president. He is a regular guest on radio and television talk shows and lectures frequently to business groups, universities, churches, and social organizations on the economic and political solutions that he proposes. All right. I also have Black Labor, White Wealth. That may be another book we can dive into together, family. That's, just let me know. You know what I'm saying? Let me know if y'all want to get into that. I got that one too. So Dr. Anderson's experiences span education, business, and all levels of government. He served as state coordinator of education for Governor Reuben Askew of Florida during the tumultuous years of integration. President Jimmy Carter appointed him to the rank of an assistant secretary in the U.S. Department of Commerce, where he chaired a commission that funded and directed economic development activities for governors. He was the executive director of 2 economic development organizations for the city of Miami, Florida. As the highest ranking black on the planning committee for the 1988 Democratic Convention, he awarded 37% of the contracts to blacks, a record that has never been broken. Dr. Claude Anderson. Okay, so as you can see, he's very esteemed. He's got a lot of experience under his belt. He done worked with presidents. He done been in the government. This man is all that, man. That's why he gets nothing but love over here. So I'm not going to read the introduction. We ain't going to read the introduction, man. We're going to jump right into chapter 1. All right. So let's see what we got here. So chapter 1 is titled, How Winners and Losers Are Predetermined. So we got here, it says, the challenges we face. It says, as the Cheshire Cat said to Alice, who was lost in the Wonderland fantasy, it doesn't matter much which road you take if you don't know where you are going. It is time for black Americans, foundational black Americans, to take a good hard look at where they have come from and where they are going. Are they moving forward or standing still? After centuries of participating in protest marches, race riots, and demonstrations and rights laws, foundational black Americans are increasingly sensing that something is wrong. They question whether or not they are on the right road. A comparative analysis of our socioeconomic conditions shows that foundational black Americans have entered the new millennium much the same way they entered the previous 4 centuries, as an impoverished, powerless, and neglected people. Since there have yet to be any programs and public policy specifically offered to eliminate the plight of the black masses, their future, like their past, looks bleak. Amidst the rising tide of white conservatism, the wealth and income gaps between the majority white society and blacks are widening. Nearly a half a century after the Supreme Court ordered racial desegregation, foundational black Americans still bear 6 to 8 times their proportional share of poverty, broken homes, homelessness, criminal incarceration, unemployment, and other social pathologies. Desegregation should have been about redistribution, wealth, power, resources, not social integration. Social integration has only addressed the symptoms of our dilemma rather than the causes. As indicated in Figure 1, it is extremely difficult for black people to progress when the same hands that held the whip still hold almost all the power and wealth. All right. So it says Figure 1. It's like a political cartoon from the New York Daily News, 1937. All right. Can't show that to you, so let's just keep it pushing. During centuries of black enslavement and Jim Crow semi-slavery, the majority society secured and retained its inherited advantages, while a black minority inherited a legacy of disadvantage in this race-based society. Whites acquired ownership and control of nearly everything of value, as well as a system for keeping blacks non-competitive and powerless. The sheer existence and size of a growing black underclass is a prima facie evidence of institutionalized racism that manipulates symbols, resources, and power to advantage whites over blacks. The reality of foundational black America's dilemma is that they are predestined to become a permanent underclass if they do not break free of the numerous disadvantages they have inherited. Blacks should get off the social road to nowhere. There are no yellow brick roads to the future, nor will blacks simply stumble into wealth and power in a competitive society. To find a better road requires blacks to unlearn old behaviors, models, strategies, and learned helplessness in race or lineage, ethnic matters, okay? Foundational black Americans must understand the nature of the competitive race and make a racial metamorphosis. They must decide where they want to go, get out in front of their competitors, and work hard to get there first. If foundational black Americans compete, they can expect to succeed and survive in the race for wealth and power. All right. So we got here, so it says racism and wealth. So we got, although slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery ended generations ago, their legacies live on in various forms of structural racism. Contrary to popular notions about the concept of race, it is more than a biological grouping. Race is about financial, political, and social currencies. It is a form of stored wealth and power. Whiteness has monetary value. Knowing the origin and nature of the value of race is essential to any analysis of foundational black America's dilemma. It is important that blacks, okay, every time I see blacks, I'm gonna just say FBAs, all right, because this is throwing me off. It is important that FBAs know why the race problem or the ethnic problem refuses to die and how it is used to keep them non-competitive and a powerless group. The word race first appeared with the emergence of the slave practice in the 16th century. Records indicate the word race was selected because the various European slave trading nations were in a contest competing to profit from the mineral and human wealth of Africa. The prize for winning the race was the power to develop Western civilization using the wealth extracted out of Africa. Black people were non-competitors in the race. They were the prizes. So they could neither play nor win. All the competing slave trading nations, religions, and ethnic groups benefited and were advantaged by black slavery. Slavery is most often approached in social and moral terms. It is seldom discussed in terms of the primary incentive that undergirded the slave trade, which is wealth building. Slavery must always be explained in monetary terms. Throughout the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, organized religion used doctrines to justify slave trading. During this same period, botanists and others in the biological sciences were studying and attempting to stratify plants and animals based upon their biological similarities and differences. They ordered plants and animals by species. Though it took nearly 300 years, the concept of race eventually emerged with the concept of biological species. By that time, white Europeans had secured nearly total control of the world's wealth and resource powers. Their new concept of race established superiority on the basis of who controlled the wealth, power, and resources at that particular time in history. What we got here? Wealth, power, and privileges became the prerogatives of non-blacks. Through intellectual sleight of hand, race became synonymous with the term species in the mid 1800s. At that time, Charles Darwin developed the concept of biological race in his Origin of Species, and it quickly became popular, often called the survival of the fittest. Darwin's theories, as well as a number of other quasi-scientific concepts, were used by educators, politicians, and religious leaders to justify black slavery and establish a qualitative ranking of inherited genes and human fitness. Naturally, those controlling the wealth and power put their cultural values and biological characteristics at the top of the racial order, and blacks at the bottom, beneath the Caucasians and Mongoloids, or Asians, Mongols, Asians, all the major European religion dominations at the time used the Bible to teach racial ranking with implicit black inferiority. During the black civil rights movements of the 1950s and 60s, the concept of biological races was intentionally expanded to include cultural, religious, ethnic, and all Spanish-speaking language groups, which were competing with black people for rights, space, and privileges. The concept of race was then diluted to an attitudinal level, and the term racism was used interchangeably with such terms as bias, prejudice, bigotry, and discrimination. Now the term racism has become so amorphous that it has little meaning and is applied to all so-called minorities. If foundational black Americans are to resolve and reverse legacy of slavery, they must view and treat racism based upon its original meaning and intent. Now I want to stop here for a second, family. This is what I want to add to this commentary, because you got to remember this book is about 25 years old here. He's talking a lot about racism, and blacks is kind of vague, right? But we know where our mindset is, family. We know that with all this, we're talking about foundational black Americans here in the United States. We ain't talking about no immigrant groups. I don't care what flag you flying. If you flying another flag, I don't want to say this ain't for you, because it could work for you if you applied it, but I'm not speaking to you. So you can listen, but this ain't what we here for. We ain't here for you. We here for foundational black Americans only. So let's keep it pushing. Racism of race without a finish line. Racism is a wealth and power-based competitive relationship between blacks and non-blacks. Now, let me stop there, okay? In the concept and the idea of United States of America, right? In this country alone, we talking about racism, and that's between foundational black Americans and everybody else. All right, we ain't talking about blacks and non-blacks, because then that kind of leaves the door open for these Africans to come in and these Caribbeans to come in. Nah, this is because they're on the other side. So let me read that one more time. Racism is a wealth and power-based competitive relationship between blacks and non-blacks. That may be true on a global scale, but within the concept of the United States of America, we talking about foundational black Americans and everybody else. Because all these non-blacks, they say blacks and non-blacks. We talk about foundational black Americans, and then the non-FBAs, they be over there with the non-blacks, right? We all know that part. They be over there with the non-blacks, so we want to keep that in mind. So let's keep it pushing. The sole purpose of racism is to support and ensure that the white majority and its ethnic subgroups, including non-FBAs, including black non-FBAs, right? The sole purpose of racism is to support and ensure that the white majority and its ethnic subgroups continue to dominate and use blacks as a means to produce wealth and power. Centuries of black enslavement and Jim Crow semi-slavery resulted in the majority society becoming 99-foot giants and blacks, or FBAs, 1-foot midgets. This massive inequality in wealth resources made FBAs non-competitive and totally dependent upon whites for the necessities of life. Like I said, we speaking within the context of the United States, family. He makes broad terms here, but this is mostly about black Americans, man. We ain't talking about no Africans, man. True racism exists only when one group holds a disproportionate share of wealth and power over another group, then uses those resources to marginalize, exploit, exclude, and subordinate the weaker group. In America, it is the whites who use wealth and power to marginalize, exploit, and subordinate FBAs. Whites can deny FBAs employment, educational opportunities, business resources, a place to live, or the right to vote. Therefore, according to this definition, foundational black Americans cannot be racist. No group of FBAs, or let's say no group of blacks, has the power or exclusive control of resources to the degree that they can educationally, politically, economically, and socially exploit and marginalize the white race. That is true. Blacks can only react to racism and try to alter the conditions that racism creates. All right. Despite the realities, there are numerous conservative blacks, FBAs or non-FBAs, who act as apologists for white racism and confuse the issue. Very true. A conservative black radio talk show host in Los Angeles, for example, charges that blacks are as racist as whites. I think he's talking about Larry Elder, if I'm not mistaken. He doesn't say his name, though. His desire for white approval, as well as his ignorance of history, impedes him from understanding that white racism and black prejudice are not the same thing. Blacks have a reason for their feelings about whites based on how they've been treated by whites. And let me add, we also have a reason for our feelings about all non-FBAs, okay, including the Spanish speakers, okay, including the Asians, all of them, right? Based on how we've been treated by them. Let me add that. Okay. His desire, no, let me see. Let's just start there. His desire for white approval, as well as his ignorance of history, impedes him from understanding that white racism and black prejudice are not the same. Okay, yeah, blacks have a reason for their feelings about whites and all non-FBAs based on how they've been treated by them. The white race, on the other hand, has never been marginalized by the black race. Racism reinforces the legacies of slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery. Blacks or FBAs have been unable to escape from those legacies because the majority society acknowledges the operation of racism in the distant past, but minimizes its present significance. And as we know, family, it wasn't even that long ago, right? We've been on this earth for thousands of years, thousands, maybe millions, depending on who you talk to. Slavery wasn't that long ago, all right? And Jim Crow, even that was, come on, man. I got grandparents that lived through that. We got grandparents that lived through that, family. Shit wasn't that long ago. All right, so when we talk about the burdens of inequality, the concept of race has progressed from the international competition for wealth and power to religious doctrine to biological classification to a personal attitude. Yet conditions and opportunities are unequal between competing minority groups. There has been no equal sharing of burdens in our equal opportunity society. Members of ethnic, class, gender, disabled, religious, Spanish language, and sexual orientation groups have not been treated in a manner equal to, he says blacks, we say FBAs, right? We say FBAs. Because, these non-FBAs, nigga, we not the same. They know that. They know we not the same. They not like us. They never been like us. They not black. Remember, I don't care what they say on TikTok nowadays. I remember, right? Back in the day, I used to be the president of the Black Student Union at my university. And I remember going around trying to recruit Africans. This is back in the day, man. We talking like 10 plus years ago. I'm trying to recruit Africans to come to the Black Student Union, man, and they looking at me like, man, why are you giving me this flyer? I'm not black, I'm Nigerian. I'm not black, I'm Senegalese. I'm not black, I know black, I'm Dominican. This is what they was saying, man. So nowadays they want to talk about they all black and all that, man. That's only because delineation going on. That's a good thing that we got the delineation thing going on, but like I'm saying, we got to keep it moving. Leave these niggas in the past. We done already delineated. They in the dust. I don't know why we still engaging with these niggas in these Twitter spaces and these damn 4-hour live streams and all this crap that these niggas be doing. Like, if we delineated, that mean, nigga, they in the past. They behind us. We ahead, nigga. We supposed to be making moves. I'm not sure what these niggas doing, but we about to get into the moves, man. I just got to give y'all the backstory, we gotta do this baby steps. You feel me? I can't jump to no different chapter. I gotta give you the whole thing. So let's see. Let's keep it going. Excuse me. All right, yeah. Let's go back. Members of ethnic, class, gender, disabled, religious, Spanish language, and sexual orientation groups have not been treated in a manner as equal to FBAs. This nation has never enacted or supported public policies and laws that have denied non-FBAs, he puts non-blacks, I'm saying non-FBAs, access to this nation's educational, political, social, and economic system. These groups have not been customarily lynched, castrated, exploited, and denied the fruits of their labor. FBAs are the only group of people forced to practice capitalism without capital in the richest, most capitalistic nation on earth. These facts, coupled with the majority society's total unwillingness to approve corrective action and reparations for the descendants of black slaves, reveals the true nature of racism against the FBAs. Racism and other legacies of slavery predetermined the success of foundational black Americans as a group. One of the most glaring examples of inherited inequalities is wealth distribution. Foundational black America's percentage of ownership of the nation's wealth remains where it was in the 1860s on the eve of the Civil War. At that time, when nearly every black person in America was either in full slavery or semi-slavery, blacks owned 1/2 of 1% of this nation's wealth. The emancipation of enslaved blacks in no sense rendered social justice and economic recompense. Today, remember this is 2001. Today, more than 140, we'll say 165 years later, we are 100% free, yet foundational black Americans still only own 1/2 of 1% of this nation's wealth. Today, the income of blacks, or FBAs, as compared to whites, has regressed to a level it was at the end of the 1960s. Approximately 38% of the black population is beneath the poverty line, and another 1/3 is marginal, just above the poverty line. The limited assets that foundational black Americans most often have, such as automobiles and personal effects, depreciate rather than appreciate in value. FBAs even find that our homes, usually our most valuable assets, have a limited market and prices are dictated by urban renewal, expressways, or gentrification. The average black person passes on 0 assets to future generations. The typical white family is more economically stable and secure. Approximately 87% of this nation's economic assets are now frozen within the dominant white society and are passed on from one generation to the next in such forms as stocks, bonds, land, businesses, trust accounts, endowments, foundations, and insurance policies, all of which we should have. Every family, we should be passing that on to our kids as well. Now, I know I'm in my mid-30s. I know my parents ain't passed, let me read this again. They ain't passed none of this on to me, right? I think some of my parents, they did get some things passed on to them, but for whatever reason, us 80s babies, we got left out in the cold. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's any 80s babies listening, but shit, I don't know no 80s babies got left with nothing. You know what I'm saying? Got left with nothing, nigga. What? Let's keep it pushing, man. Therefore, white children are privileged to enter the world with 87% of resources that they need to succeed in life already in their families, race, communities, businesses, schools, governments, or social organizations. Thus, succeeding generations of whites can access these wealth resources over and over again. What is wealth? Wealth refers to the net value of a person, group, or community, less their liabilities or debt at any given point in time. It is stored value. Income, in contrast, refers to a flow of dollars over a period of time. With rare exceptions, most blacks or FBAs are so marginalized that they own and control little wealth or resources anywhere, including in their own neighborhoods. It's very true. The ancestors of enslaved blacks or enslaved FBAs were forced to concentrate simply on surviving, pursuing civil rights and integration. They had little to bequeath to their descendants. Even though they succeeded in their social and civil rights efforts, their children cannot inherit welfare, food stamps, public housing, or a good job. Now that's a fact, man. Especially when he talks about how, we don't really even own anything in our own neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? I just know, I know that's how it is in Philly, man. When you go to the neighborhood, what do they call them? They call them poppy stores in Philly, In other stores, in other cities, they may call them bodegas. It might just be the corner store, whatever. It's always somebody else that run that store at the corner there. It's never a black American, not at least not where I'm coming from, not nowhere where I've lived at. Now, granted, maybe down south, in certain parts of the south, y'all might, we might got some FBA stores here and there, but in most places, I don't know about that. And like I said, he talking about we can't pass down food stamps, public housing, or a good job. I have seen generations get passed down Section 8. That has happened, but I think nowadays that is coming to an end, unfortunately, for some people. Let's keep it pushing. 3 major impediments to black competitiveness. Regardless of how fast and how high foundational black Americans jump, without proportional wealth, ownership, and control of resources, it is nearly impossible for FBAs to play the game of capitalism, and even more difficult for them to win. Why can't FBAs win? Oh man, this shit gonna trigger some people, boy. Let's examine 3 major impediments to FBA self-sufficiency and competitiveness. Figure 2 shows that the 3 major impediments are: 1. Maldistribution of wealth and resource powers. 2. Inappropriate behavior patterns. 3. Lack of national plan for empowerment. Each of these 3 major impediments is carefully examined and discussed in detail in the next few sections of the book. All right. So got a figure here: maldistribution of wealth and resources, powers. That's number 1. Inappropriate psychosocial behavior patterns is number 2. And of course, no national economic or political empowerment plan, number 3. Let's get into the first impediment: maldistribution of wealth. The first impediment to black empowerment, to foundational black American empowerment, is the structural wealth inequalities, inequities between blacks and whites, FBAs and whites, right? Or we could say FBAs and all other non-FBAs, right? To begin our journey to self-empowerment, we must first understand that these inequities are structural, much like the framing of a house. The frame provides the underlying support for the walls, ceilings, and floors. You cannot see the framing once the walls and flooring have been completed. As long as the house stands, the way in which the house was framed will dictate not only its shape, but also the mobility of the people who live inside the house. The structural racial inequalities, structural racial inequities of wealth and resource powers function in a similar way. They are buried in the fabric of American society. They dictate life chances, rewards, and opportunities, and explain how people act in race matters. Whites have had such total control over wealth, power, resources, and basic necessities of life that it has become the norm. Racial myths have long promoted the belief that the conditions of foundational black Americans are the consequence of nature rather than the result of this nation's historical acts. The structural inequities of race can only persist if the historical origin of white control of wealth, resources, and power remain either unknown or ignored. A white society will not publicly admit that its powerful self-interest perpetuate the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery. The critical contributions of foundational black Americans to the development of this nation and the Western civilization are largely hidden. To admit black people's contributions, to admit FBA's contributions, is to trigger white guilt and a sense of responsibility for FBA's predicament. According to records, the majority society compiled its wealth by using a simple economic principle. The industry of slavery produced a 1,500% return on investment without the burden of wages, employee benefits, and taxes. The lifetime profits produced by whites were passed on to the slaveholders' heirs and their heirs' heirs. Wealth accumulated for white society while poverty accumulated for FBAs. Our nation claims to be an equal opportunity colorblind society, After more than a century of maldistributing the nation's land and wealth producing resources to everybody but foundational black Americans. Even after Jim Crow segregation ended in the 1960s and this nation formally became a so called quote unquote just society, the white society committed only $15 billion to conduct a war on poverty. Since this program included every group in America, it is unclear how this limited effort was supposed to correct the centuries of abuse inflicted specifically on foundational black Americans. Social conservatives argue that 7 years of the Great Society programs fulfilled all responsibilities that white society had to foundational black Americans for 400 years of slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery. Neither the U.S. government nor social conservatives have offered a public explanation for including gender, ethnic, class, Spanish-speaking, and disabled groups in a program that supposedly paid the nation's debt to foundational black Americans. Now, he says blacks, but it's like I said, this book is old, right? So that's what I'm trying to substitute certain terms, right? Because what we've noticed over the years is that he names a lot of people, right? He says gender, ethnic, class, Spanish speaking, and disabled groups, but he leaves out these black immigrants, right? And then he says blacks, like we all together in this joint. Like that's why I'm trying to substitute the word in here, family, so we can make it a little up to date and make it make sense for everybody. But it's a little tough when you're reading it, and sometimes I forget to substitute these words. But let's go, because he's talking about, this is what it really says. I substituted it, but this is what it really says. Since the program included every group in America, it is unclear how this limited effort was supposed to correct the centuries of abuse inflicted specifically on black people. Like, black people, like, nah, that's not. Foundational black Americans, all right? Social conservatives argue that 7 years of the Great Society programs fulfill all responsibility that white society had to blacks for 400 years of slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery. While the Caribbeans did go through slavery, they damn sure wasn't really going through no Jim Crow. There wasn't a whole lot of them over here going through Jim Crow with us. It was some, but it wasn't a whole bunch of them. So that's why we ain't talking about them. Neither the U.S. government nor social conservatives have offered a public explanation for including gender, ethnic, class, Spanish-speaking, and disabled groups in a program that supposedly paid the nation's debt to blacks. No, to FBAs. Ironically, during the same 7-year period, this nation spent $120 billion on a war in Vietnam, which was 8 times larger than the amount spent on a war on poverty. Hidden behind the facade of a colorblind society, racism in the 1970s became politically incorrect. To maintain the status quo, structural racism replaced overt racism, and the term minorities replaced blacks. And we done replaced the term minorities with FBAs, all right? We ain't talking about nobody but us. So, our monopolized society. Says here, racism in America has gone through a number of mutations, though always retaining its inequities. It is now practically impossible for members of our society to see and prove racism against black people, foundational black Americans. It is now hidden behind a pseudo-egalitarian smokescreen. Social conservatives and the power elite praised Martin Luther King Jr. and picked up the rhetoric of the black civil rights movement, but distorted the fundamental intent of the movement. They proclaimed that racial inequality no longer exists and all groups were starting out even. Thus, they created an illusion, just like the drunk who took his pet alligator into a bar, cut off its tail, painted it yellow, and called it a dog. Social conservatives and the power elite are taking racism through similar false transformations. However, no matter how it is camouflaged, racism is still right before our eyes. Old-fashioned racism has gone legitimate again, masquerading with all the rights and privileges of the approved monopolies. The word monopoly emanates from the word monarch. According to Charles R. Geist, the author of Monopolies in America, the tradition of monopolies was inherited from English common law. The British Crown granted patent leathers to merchants, giving them exclusive right to provide certain goods and services. Any monopoly conveys the ultimate source of power, wealth, and control to a person, group, or business. When a business entity has a monopoly, It dominates and controls nearly all aspects of an industry and can use its massive power to raise barriers to control markets and bankrupt competitors. A racial monopoly, like any other monopoly, is defined by an origin and a power it has over its competitors. On its way to becoming the essence of various white monopolies, racism has passed through three monopolistic stages. The first stage is a natural monopoly that protects things that are strategically vital to the government itself. In race matters, whiteness and all of its ramifications was always strategically vital and invaluable, entitling its bearer to wealth, privileges, authority, and power, and certain inalienable rights. The United States Constitution codified whiteness as a national asset. Various state and local governments passed anti-miscegenation laws that defined whiteness and protected it from race mixing. The second is a collusive monopoly. This monopoly exists when members of a tightly knit group of public agencies or private corporations enter into specific agreements to control the marketplaces or the wealth, power, and resources of a society over their common competitor. In race matters, it is a collusive monopoly when this nation continuously expands the definition of whiteness to include a hierarchy of ethnic groups. Today, it includes a succession of immigrants from Europe, the Middle East, Spanish-speaking countries, and Asia. All of these groups are unified as the members of the Caucasian race, with the exception of blacks and Asians. And according to Andrew Hacker, Asians are on probation to be classified as white. Immigration laws are examples of specific agreements that control marketplaces, wealth, and power. These laws establish new priorities for admissions, country of origin, family members who are already here, possession of needed skills, and the financial ability to purchase entry. This criteria is biased toward immigrants with skin color that is more acceptable than black. The third stage is a shared monopoly. This is a popular term used in the business world today. A shared monopoly is a composite of a collusive and natural monopoly. It reaches its maximum effectiveness when members of a group work together to control or drive competition out of the marketplace. Small businesses have federal antitrust laws that protect them from the power of large corporate monopolies, but there are no constitutional or government provisions that prevent the white society and its feeder immigrant groups from shutting blacks out of political and economic marketplaces. And when they say, okay, let me read that one more time, right? But there are no constitutional or governmental provisions that prevent the white society and its feeder immigrant groups from shutting foundational black Americans out of political and economic marketplaces. Because we already know how these black immigrants like to shut us out of political and economic marketplaces. Speaking of Africans and these black immigrants, how's that boycott going against them Africans, man? Anybody know how that boycott going? I know down around my ways, man, it's hella Africans where I'm coming from down, whether it's Southwest Philly, East Delco, everything, man, them Africans got flooded in there about 25 years ago, man, and they done took over everything, damn near all the black businesses, damn near all of them is African. I don't know how they doing. I don't go to them, right? I don't get my hair braided. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't really go to them African stores, so I'm just wondering how the boycott going because I never really patronized them anyway. But I'm glad it's going, and I hope it just stays up. You know what I'm saying? I've been telling everybody about it. Some people look at me like I'm crazy, especially them old folks, right? Them old motherfuckers. And a lot of people is like, oh yeah, they all for it because they know what the deal is, right? So just wondering how that's going, man. Let's keep it going though. A brief history of monopoly building in America, right? Over the course of this nation's history, there have been at least three major phases of monopoly building for wealth and power. The first monopoly building phase in American history occurred during the colonization of America when Europeans in general, and the English in particular, formed and held natural monopolies in land ownership, slave trading, and slave-supported industries. England exerted the power of its newly found slavery-based wealth by instituting the Navigation Act in the 1760s and other laws and tariffs that mandated that American colonists ship their slave-produced raw products and goods to England for processing, manufacturing, and marketing. The colonists then had to purchase back the finished products at higher and inflated prices. This system effectively allowed England to exercise full control and political control and to economically exploit its colonies as well as other nations. England became the king of slave trading and held a natural monopoly on constructing slave based economies. The English crown established the first franchising system that built plantations, financed slaveholders, and supplied the slaves and shipped and processed the slave produced goods. Excuse me. It took a full century for the American colonists to recognize that they were locked into an English monopoly. Once the reality set in, they began calling those monopolies tyranny. The American colonists rejected England's plans to expropriate the fruits of slave labor and to control the politics of the colonies. The colonists knew from the English history of serfdom in any system that politically subordinates, economically exploits, and socially dominates a group of people is tyrannical because it reduces them to slaves. The colonists did not want to be England's serfs. They preferred to fight, and when they did, they ignited and fought the Revolutionary War for their independence. The second phase, and just to correct the elder here, there were FBAs involved in that Revolutionary War. All right, we fought in that war as well. All right, the second phase of monopoly building began shortly after the Revolutionary War. The American colonists immediately drafted the United States Constitution, which imposed on foundational Black Americans the same government-sponsored tyranny that the colonists rejected under the English rule. The so-called founding fathers of this nation, most of whom were slaveholders and sympathetic to other slaveholders, drafted and ratified the United States Constitution. And that document gave the colonial slaveholders a collusive monopoly, the same monopolistic controls that England had over the colonists before the war. Just as slave labor had made England wealthy, it allowed Southern slaveholders to operate in their own best interests rather than the best interests of Northern whites or enslaved foundational Black Americans. The North eventually concluded that it could not acquire competitive wealth and political power until it broke the South's monopoly on Black labor. In 1861, the Civil War broke out between the North and the South over wealth and political power. The third phase of monopoly building occurred after the North won the Civil War. The war effectively destroyed legalized slavery and transferred the South's monopolies on wealth and power and political power to the North. The North focused its newly acquired wealth and power on industrializing the North and the West. The massive amounts of money previously invested in the slavery industry and the Civil War military production was used to build bridges, canals, railroads, ships, and factories. However, in achieving the political and economic defeat of the South, the North had ignored the 5 million ex-slaves. Major political organizations in the North went on record opposing emancipation of enslaved foundational Black Americans unless they were shipped out of the country in order that they not compete against white men's labor, Stephen Steinberg wrote. The North abandoned Black ex-slaves. The South got the message and commandeered foundational Black Americans into semi-slavery, while the North looked the other way. According to the Memorandum of Proceedings in the United States Senate, the Southern states, by their situation and climate, require Black labor and must have it, or the states will cease to have any value. The Southern states enacted Black codes that again gave them a shared monopoly control on land, economic systems, governments, and educational systems, and Black labor for another 100 years. Both the North and the South used various levels of government to create white-only business and political, intellectual, and social monopolies. These advantages of property, technology, political participation, and major business opportunities were passed on to succeeding generations of white males. All right, racial monopolies in America. Racial monopolies predetermine winners and losers and are considered a normal part of our political economic structure. Through these monopolies, white society maintains a lock on the essential elements of Black people's lives and makes Black people spectators in the democratic process. The racial monopolies discussed below are but a few of nearly invisible structures that marginalize and justify foundational Black America's position as this nation's permanent minority loser. Man. man. Boy, he talking real spicy in this joint, man. He talking real spicy in this joint, man. But uh, I agree with him. You know what I'm saying? And this is something that he wrote 25 years ago. And at a certain point in this book, he mentions that we got to start implementing these um, these tactics and these strategies that are listed in this book. He said we need to do it by like 2005 or something. And if we don't do it by 2005, it's a wrap. As we know, 2005 was like 20 years ago, and we haven't done nothing. Like, now granted, there's been some progress in the last few years and whatnot, but it's not enough, and I think it might be too late. But like I said, I mean, I guess this is like intellectual masturbation, right? To just read this stuff and know that, hey, all the answers are right here and we can do it all. We can do it, but the mindset is just way off. And even with the so-called on-code FBAs, it's like instead of taking this knowledge and applying it, niggas is sitting on YouTube live, basically like I'm doing now, right? But see, I'm giving this knowledge, man. Niggas would rather sit on YouTube live and talk about a random African chick in her car talking shit to FBAs. They rather talk about that for 4 hours. Some nobody African in their Uber car talking about how they're better than foundational Black Americans. They want to have a 4-hour live stream on that, right? They want to have a 6-hour long Twitter space about some chick on TikTok talking trash about Beyonce or something. Like who cares? Like, who cares? If we delineating and we better than these other groups, why are we still focused on what the fuck they talking about? This is what we need to be talking about right here. Let's keep it going, man. Monopoly is established in the Constitution. As indicated earlier, the United States Constitution is not and has never been colorblind. It is a race-specific and color-conscious. For all intents and purposes, the Constitution remains unchanged. The Founding Fathers were the first ones to play the race card. In fact, they were the original card dealers. They allocated rights, resources, and power to the majority white society. America essentially has 2 constitutions, one for whites and one for foundational Black Americans. Constitutional amendments 1 through 12 are race specific and empower the majority white society. The 13th through 15th amendments were also color specific. They gave citizenship and empowerment rights to Black ex-slaves. The 13th Amendment eliminated legal slavery. The 14th Amendment gave FBAs equal protection and due process rights. The 15th Amendment extended voting and other social rights to FBAs. Majority society has co-opted these amendments. During Reconstruction in the 1860s, major social and economic forces began to make these amendments colorblind, even though they were originally specific to FBAs. The term colorblind was not formally used until 1896, when Chief Justice John M. Harlan of the Supreme Court issued a dissenting opinion in the Plessy v. Ferguson decision. The Supreme Court held that there was nothing wrong with separate but equal accommodations for Blacks and whites as a public policy. But Justice Harlan said the Constitution was colorblind. He was the first to say it, but he was wrong. The Constitution is and always has been color specific. The color consciousness of the Constitution was no accident. The society codified the racial inequalities that existed initially in our society. James Madison, a major author of the Constitution and a slaveholder, knew he was not including foundational Black Americans when he spoke of how the country would always be divided between those who held property and those who were themselves property. When he spoke of owning property, he meant items such as household furnishings, livestock, and land. He also clearly included ownership of slaves. When the Constitution was finally ratified in 1789, however, it used broad, ambiguous, and inoffensive public relations type words such as all and everyone, rather than to refer directly to Black slaves. Still, it established a system in which the racial group defined as white could hold monopolies of wealth and political power over the subordinate Black group, FBAs, that was classified as personal property and only 3/5 of a human. The Constitution also included an affirmative action provision for the South that eventually led to a civil war between the North and South. The Constitution made white Southerners a protected minority with the privilege of holding a monopoly on slavery. While specifically, provisions in the U.S. Constitution gave the Southern minority political rights and preferential treatment in the Fugitive Slave Act, favorable quotas on the export and import of slave-related products, and set aside advantages on elected representation in Congress. This revered document declared freedom and justice for everyone but foundational Black Americans, while giving special status and privileges and rights to the South. The Constitution continues to be used as a basis to deny preferences, affirmative action, and reparations for foundational Black Americans. Citizenship and the benefits of whiteness were constitutionally denied to foundational Black Americans. Ironically, like FBAs, Indians were also specifically identified in the Constitution, but they were excluded from official abuse because they were categorized as free inhabitants and encouraged to assimilate into white society. So when he says Indians, I think he's referring to the Native Americans. He's referring to the red Native Americans, and he says that they were categorized as free inhabitants, and they were encouraged to assimilate into white society. That's why they ended up opening up their ranks to so many white people. And nowadays these white tribes are basically like mixed white, quasi-white groups. You know what I'm saying? So that right there shows you that back in those times when it was primarily the white folks, the white Europeans, the foundational Black Americans, and the so-called Native Americans, we were the only people really being subjugated. And it's still that way, family. Like, you know what I'm saying? When the immigrants would come over back in those days, it was majority white immigrants coming from Europe. Of course, they may not have had the same status as the white Americans, but they eventually get it. They eventually got it. You know what I'm saying? And they were here to be a buffer, you know what I'm saying, to basically drown us out. Things evolved after the civil rights movement, you know what I'm saying? They started changing up the quotas on what kind of people can immigrate into this country, and now we got a whole bunch of so-called non-white folks that come over here, but they occupy the same thing basically as when the white Europeans came over. It's all the same. It don't matter what color these immigrants are. When they come over here, the government is going to prop them up, give them privileges over us. It don't matter what color they are. It don't matter what status they are if they come over here legally or illegally. The government going to prop them up over us every single time. All right. So let's keep going. Citizenship. Let's keep going. Okay, by the end of the 19th century, American Indians had the option to leave the reservations or remain protected wards of the government. Yet, throughout their relationship, white leaders and various institutions have recognized Indians as an acceptable extension of white society that ranked higher in the biological order than blacks, or FBAs. Everybody ranks higher in the biological order than FBAs, right? That's what we need to understand. Everybody. We're supposed to be at the very bottom. When the U.S. Constitution was modified in the 1860s through the addition of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, the Black Constitution, after numerous rewrites, the final language contained ambiguous words such as all persons, any person, and everyone, although it was commonly understood that the constitutional amendments were for Black ex-slaves. The initial congressional enabling language hinted that these civil rights laws bound the U.S. Congress to take care of Black ex-slaves until they could take care of themselves. To this day, however, Congress has never abided by their own laws in this regard, and members have sat by silently while the dominant society has boldly undermined the economic rights awarded to Black people. They allowed the majority white society to co-opt the Black Constitution and promote the myth that the United States Constitution was colorblind. The Constitution was conceived as a social economic covenant for those who already had power, wealth, and nearly unlimited rights. To be a truly democratic society, this nation would have to redistribute and share some of its wealth and power with foundational Black America. The Black Constitution was passed following the Civil War because of the efforts of a small group of radical liberal Republican congressmen who succeeded in amending the Constitution by including color-specific amendment for FBAs. These amendments gave FBAs a minimum level of rights that certain congressmen hoped would offset some of the tyranny of the white majority society. Population monopolies, okay? One of the first acts of the U.S. Constitution following the ratification of the Constitution, one of the first acts of the U.S. Congress following the ratification of the Constitution was to enact this nation's first naturalization and immigration law in 1790. This law declared America to be a white nation and set a zero quota on black immigrants, except as slaves. A quota of approximately zero remained in effect until 1965, when it was increased to its current level of 0.5%. Throughout most of this nation's history, peoples of African descent have been nearly shut out of the immigration and refugee programs of the United States. Blacks have competed in this nation's majority win population game almost exclusively from birthrights rather than immigration. Though they could never win as a national majority, they also have never won as a local majority. The Black Civil Rights Movement quest for integration ensured that blacks would always be a minority population in white schools, businesses, jobs, communities, and entertainment centers. This is true, very true. The census is conducted every decade and establishes the official population count of the country. Efforts to create a multicultural category in the 2000 census will most likely dilute and in reality distort downward the number of blacks or FBAs in America. Dilution of population assures that blacks or FBAs will lose status as a numerical majority minority. Government efforts to change racial definitions will retain the white population majority monopoly and inflate the numbers of Hispanics in the population. Now, this is all true. What a lot of people don't know is that back in the days, we talking about prior to the 1960s, right? So let's say the 1960 census, the 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, going all the way back, right? A lot of people don't know this, but the black immigrants who would come over, primarily like Hispanics, like coming from whatever different islands they was coming from, if they were black, if you could physically look at them and tell they was black, right? Like let's say a lot of Dominicans, for example, back in those days, they were actually classified as black. There was no Latino, there was no Hispanic category. If you were black and you could clearly tell by your features that you was a black Latino, they were all identified and classified and lived amongst us as black people. It wasn't until after the Civil Rights Act that they came up with the whole Hispanic thing, and then Latino became its own category so that they can eat off of what we gained through the Civil Rights Act, because most Latinos, the non-black ones, were already classified as white. But the issue they had with being classified as white was that they were like bottom of the barrel white folks that wasn't getting any kind of benefits. They got no benefits. They weren't getting benefits like we weren't getting benefits, but they were white. The only benefit they had was they could sit at the front of the bus, right? They could drink from that white water fountain. They used the white restroom. You feel me? They was with the white folks, but they was like white trash. You see what I'm saying? Where white trash was actually like a class above them. So once they seen we got our rights, they decided, hey, we need to become minorities too. So let's say we're Hispanic. Let's make sure we maintain the Spanish language so we can be considered a minority too. And ever since they did that, they've been eating off of all our civil rights gains since the 70s. They've been eating off our shit since then. But to give you a history lesson, the black Latinos that would come over here, they would be classified with us. They would classify with the blacks. They was with us. They was segregated with us, even though they spoke Spanish. And that's back in the day. All right, just to give y'all that. Let's get back to where I was at, man. Boom. Okay, the census is conducted every decade and establishes the official population count of the country. Efforts to create a multicultural category. I already read that. Okay, inflate the numbers of Hispanics. Okay, in his book Uprooting Racism, Paul Keevil said, whiteness is a many-faceted phenomenon, slowly and constantly shifting its emphasis, all the time maintaining a racial hierarchy and protecting the power that accrues to white people Although there are no natural or essential qualities or characteristics of whiteness or of white people, it is not an easy fiction to let go of. By constantly enlarging the ethnic boundaries of whiteness, all Europeans, Middle Easterns, Hispanics, and soon Asians, whites separate people who are entitled to privileges and wealth from the people who are exploited and violated. In a group based society, constant efforts to enlarge the majority white population ensure that a shared racial population monopoly will continue to exist far into the future. The 2000 census form offers blacks 54 subcategories to opt out of their race and further atomize their population numbers. The census will not dilute whiteness. On the contrary, it further expands the definition of whiteness. Um, you know what? I don't really have an issue with them having like 54 subcategories. You know what I'm saying? Because that helps with our delineation, right? We trying to get ethnic, lineage, specific, tangibles right about now. Back in these days, he's still conflating our plight with black immigrants. He's still like trying to tie them together somehow. And I mean, I get where he's coming from, especially back during them times, but this is one of the mistakes that a lot of the elders made that we cool with that now. Yeah, they can go ahead and keep expanding whiteness. We already know what the deal is. All these people want to be white. Even the black immigrants want to be white. So they can be white all they want, man. Let's everybody go ahead on that one side and let FBAs be on the other side. So we can finally put our hands up and say, yo, we the ones that need to be addressed. All right, we the ones that been neglected, not these other, you know what I'm saying? Not these other people. It's us and only us, and we ain't fighting for nobody but us. We ain't fighting for nobody else, man. You getting deported? Oh well, won't got nothing to do with that. We undeportable. Let's look at how a shared white monopoly impacts foundational Black America's life chances. Whites are a planned majority. FBAs, on the other hand, are a planned permanent minority. Limited by immigration policies, blacks are only 12.4% of the general population. See, he says limited by immigration policies, like he's looking at it like, I guess bringing over more immigrants will help our plight. That's the mentality that a lot of the elders had. And granted, we all know Claude Anderson is all about our empowerment, and that's one of the elders. But some of these the phrasing of some of these sentences, man, is just like, looking back on it through this lens that we have now, it's like, wow, like, you know what I'm saying? Because look, this is 2.5 years ago. We still like 12 something percent of the population. We're still that, and we've been flooded with a bunch of black immigrants. So what does that tell you? Does that mean that the black immigrants are that clearly they're gaining, their population is growing. If I'm not mistaken, I think they say like 1 out of every 5 black people in America is an immigrant now. It may be 1 out of 4. You know what I'm saying? With all the undocumented immigrants that's running around here that we don't fucking know about, all these illegal motherfuckers, it may be 1 in 4 now is some kind of immigrant. And that don't help us. So even though we're a planned minority, and the fact that there's a limitation on immigration for blacks, like, who cares? Because when the black people immigrate over here, they're not on our side. This is what we've learned. That they're not on our side. They're on the side with the whites. The way he keeps framing the whites as, okay, it's us versus them. It's them versus us. Nigga, them black immigrants that come over here, they be over there with them. The majority of them do. You know what I'm saying? It may not be all of them, but the vast majority of them are. So it doesn't really matter. Just limited by immigration policies. Blacks are only 12% of the general population. Limited by immigration policies. Who cares? If anything, we're limited because we having so many damn abortions, right? And I'm gonna get into that. I don't know if he talks about abortion specifically, but once we get past this monopoly topic, he's going to get into the behaviors, some of the inappropriate behaviors. That's coming up in the same chapter. He's a long chapter, his family. But the inappropriate behaviors, I think that's the bigger problem why we're only 12%, is the fact that we're not building families, right? We're not building families. Families are breaking up or whatever. They having these babies First off, these women laying down. You know what? You know what? Let me stop. Let me stop. Let me just keep reading. Let me just keep reading. We won't get into inappropriate behaviors, and when we get to that section of this chapter, then maybe I'll get into my thoughts on that. Uh, okay, it says they are outnumbered 7-1 by their shared white majority. That is 87% of the population. 87%. Oh yeah, that's right. He's including everybody. See, here he includes everybody that's non-FBA as white. Okay, that makes sense. He includes them all as 87%. That means that whites can override blacks at least 7 times, making it impossible for blacks to take over anything because they got these fucking buffer classes amongst us. All right, and then they prop up these immigrants to be our representatives. So when we look into a leader like a Barack Obama, they gotta make sure they get somebody that's mixed or with half white lineage, or they gotta make sure they get somebody who's completely non-FBA. You know, he gotta be completely non-FBA. Or if he is half FBA, he could be half FBA, but they gotta have like an allegiance to that other half that they prop up over FBA. Like this is what they do. And at that point, these people are part of the white society. Okay, moreover, with the exception of entertainment, blacks do not exceed 1% of ownership, control, or representation of anything positive in American society. In critical skill professions such as doctors, lawyers, architects, engineers, scientists, judges, physicians, business owners, wealth holders, and elected officials, blacks or FBAs never exceed 1/2 of 1%. In every black professional, if every FBA professional was hired in public sector or private sector jobs, whites would still hold approximately 99.5% of the professional positions. And when he says whites, that's white, including all the other non-FBAs. And if all of the, back then, 36 million black people in the entire country were employed, the educated, the uneducated, senior citizens, those in prison, child, infants, teenagers, the total number could never exceed 12% of the workforce. When blacks try to even marginally increase their percentage in the workforce, whites are threatened to initiate a backlash. Shit, that backlash might be open borders, nigga. Come on over, Hector. Come on over, Julio. Come on over. Open borders. That's the backlash. And all them people won't come over here and identify right along with whiteness and be anti-black as can be, because that's what's going on. You can ignore it all you want, old folks. Y'all done sold us out anyway. That's why nobody listening to y'all. Damn Democrats. Okay. Man, this is taking a lot longer than I thought, family. It's taking a lot longer than I thought. Wealth monopoly. Slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery did not just make whites a little bit richer than blacks. Whites are vastly richer. They have deprived black people, FBAs, of nearly the whole economic pie. It is the proportion of the pie that a group owns that determines its access to functional schools, competitive businesses, equal justice, essential health care, personal comfort, and the length and quality of their lives. The nature of white wealth has cut blacks off from nearly all of these fundamentals of life. White society not only owns and controls most of the nation's wealth and power resources, but most of it is passed on from one generation of whites to the next. This is one reason why there is a lower proportion of whites who are poor compared to the number of poor FBAs or blacks. Let's say I'll leave blacks there because you got a lot of poor non-FBAs too. All right. And while the children of affluent white people are less likely than blacks to ever become poor, wealth is frozen and stored inside the white race. In its families, culture, business, churches, communities, education systems, and organizations in the form of stocks, bonds, lands, insurance policies, trust accounts, and foundations. Where was I at? Okay, it is inconceivable that blacks could cross racial boundaries and successfully displace these frozen forms of wealth. See, here he says blacks, we might as well say FBAs because ain't no non-FBAs trying to cross racial boundaries and successfully displace nothing. They trying to go right along and just go along with it. They're not trying to change anything. Okay. So as indicated in table 1, right? It's another figure here. Table 1 says whites own nearly 100% of all corporate bonds and stocks, which amounts to approximately $13 trillion. In 1986, the 256th largest company of the Fortune 500, a white corporation, had sales equal to the $16 billion total combined sales of the nation's 100 largest black-owned businesses, as listed in the August 2000 edition of Black Enterprise magazine. Damn. Let me read that one more time slowly so this can sink in. In 1986, right? We talking about like 39, almost 40 years ago. In 1986, the 256th largest company of the Fortune 500 was a white corporation, had sales equal to the $16 billion total combined sales of the nation's 100 largest black-owned businesses. So, damn. So, the 256th largest company had larger sales than the combined total sales of the top 100 black companies. Yo, come on, fam. Come on, fam. And ain't nothing changed. You know, like I said, this book was published in 2001. This is from 2000. Ain't nothing changed. Nothing changed. While the wealth gap continues to widen between blacks and white wealth, anything changed is just getting worse. Excuse me. I stand corrected. While the wealth gap continues to widen between blacks or FBAs and whites, the number of millionaires and billionaires increases. During the 1980s, for example, the number of millionaires and billionaires also increased by 300 and 500% respectively. Although the handful of black entertainers and sports figures are included in the millionaire category, their standing is most often a result of increased income, which is not the same as increased wealth. Moreover, none of the wealthiest black entertainers and athletes appear on the Forbes list of the 500 wealthiest. Obtaining wealth equality in America is a rigged game. There is no equal opportunity to gain wealth. Such opportunities typically depend on 4 factors. Number 1, inborn capacity. Number 2, cultural and educational opportunities. Number 3, ownership and control of resources. And number 4, the power of racism. In summary, this means a white person of normal talents who lives in an enriched culture with parents who can afford the best has an excellent chance to become rich and live well. Economic Darwinism tracks both parental and racial bloodlines. Structural racism enables whites to acquire wealth, while capital gains and inheritance laws ensure that they keep and control wealth. Steve Brower stated in his book Sharing the Pie that in 1996, Charles Darrance of the Campbell Soup Company inherited a great deal of wealth. He traded in 9 million shares of company stock and earned $740 million. Warren Buffett, a Wall Street investor, profited $10.6 billion over a period of 24 months for a total fortune of $21 billion. And this is 25 years ago, family. 25 years ago. In comparison, nearly 50% of foundational black America has a net worth approaching zero because its debts negate any property or assets that can pass on to their offspring. The white economic stronghold on essential empowerment resources is also reflected in business ownership and management, which is nearly 100% white and mostly male. When white economic monopolies open up, white females get in the door first, followed by those ethnic minorities classified as white, which is the Latinos, the Indians, the Asians, damn near everybody else, right? And then when it comes to the blacks, they're going to bring in the black immigrants first over there. Okay, all right. As Brower writes, white men are in no danger of losing or even sharing control of management of the nation's top 500 corporations for at least 25 years. Damn, America's top 104 corporations have an average of one black in senior positions. Let me read that one more time. White men, as Brower, whoever this guy is, as Brower writes, white men are in no danger of losing or even sharing control of management of the nation's top 500 corporations for at least 25 years, which would bring us to today's date, right? Look at what's going on now, right? When it comes to these white men, right? These white men getting on these podcasts, running around talking about they're oppressed, right? They're the most hated group. They over here crying. They are here crying like they're oppressed now all of a sudden. And they're the oppressor is crying that he's oppressed because he done open the doors up for his woman. Then he done open the door up for the Indians. When the Indians come in, the Indians going to discriminate against the white man and hire nothing but Indians. Everybody's white though, but the white man sees what's happening. Now he's crying. The Indian come in, he hired nothing but Indians. The Latino man come in, he gonna hire nothing but Latinos. They all white though. But that white American man is crying now. Now he wants to get everybody out the paint. The idea was, yeah, we're gonna bring these immigrants over so we can dilute the power of the foundational black Americans. But they done let over so many people and it's been so unchecked for so long. Now these same groups of people are coming and discriminating against the white man. And now they crying. Now you got MAGA and you got people like, the president or whatever that want to get the deportations going because they see now it's negatively affecting them as well. But it always negatively affected us, family, and we've always been the target. Just understand that. Let's keep it moving. Media monopolies. Commercial media create a vital reality of our society. Not only are the owners of media responsible for the information that we see and hear, but they create images of FBAs and define us in our sense of community. This is troublesome. This is troublesome for FBAs because whites hold ownership monopoly over the nation's print and electronic media. Media ownership is a source of control over power, wealth, and information. Media power is political power. Whites control nearly 100% of this nation's 1,500 daily newspapers, 11,000 radio stations, 11,800 cable systems, 1,500 television stations, and major internet businesses. These monopolies ensure that FBAs will never have an effective mass media system of their own. It means that FBAs will always have to ask permission to use white-owned mass communication vehicles to reach out to other blacks or discuss sensitive racial issues. Members of the public who desire to be exposed to the perspective of FBAs are deprived of that information and do not have access to that type of unfiltered programming. Now, what I'll say about this is that nowadays we do have a black media that is speaking for us, but the issue is that they still use these white-owned platforms like YouTube, like right now. I'm still using YouTube. If you're not going to be on YouTube, where are you going to go to? You're going to go to Rumble. It's another white-owned platform. You're going to go to Patreon. It's all white-owned. And the issue we have as FBAs is that even if we do get an FBA who creates something for ourselves, we be the first ones to boycott it a lot of times. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are black social media platforms out right now. Matter of fact, there's a couple of them. I done forgot their names, pardon me. You know what I'm saying? But that should be the first thing we gravitate to. But it's like we don't, for whatever reason, we don't promote those. We don't gravitate toward that. We're the trendsetters, but when we get a black engineer that creates our own platform for ourselves, we don't set the trend to go over there. We stay on these white-owned platforms. We stay on X. We stay on YouTube. TikTok. TikTok may be a Chinese-owned, but under this framework that we're building on right now, family, those Chinese, they're white as well. Okay? When we do have platforms, I forget the joint, man. It was a joint that just dropped maybe about a year ago. I don't even know if it's around anymore. That'd be the thing. They'll drop, they get no traction because black folks don't gravitate to it, and then it's gone. That's a problem. That's a major problem we have, family. Let's keep it going, man. Okay. Yeah, white society constructs monopolies inside of monopolies. Clear channel communications provides a good example of media ownership as an important racial monopoly that is also a major source of wealth and power. According to the company's 1999 annual report, it owns 900 radio stations, 19 television stations, 700,000 outdoor advertising units in the United States. It has equity interests in 240 radio stations internationally. The company's gross revenue in 1999 was $3 billion, dollars, which was up 97% from 1998. White media protects white interests. Without wealth to own media outlets, blacks will always be in a position of complaining about the images others always be, blacks will always be in a position of complaining about the images others present of them. But they will never have sufficient means to change or fashion appropriate images of themselves. Take a look at the Shade Room, family. Look at some of these black media outlets, right? The ones that are ran by the tethers. What do? What kind of images do they present of Black America on the Shade Room? What kind of images of Black Foundation Black America do they present on Media Takeout, Bossip, and the rest of it? We know the heavy hitters, World Star. We know what they are. Look at the images they put up of Black Americans, and then look at the images that they place up of the non-FBAs. We know about all the degeneracy that goes on within non-FBA culture, man. We know what's going on in the Caribbean and Africa. They gloss over all that. They ignore all that. They put the best images they could possibly find of non-FBAs all the time. And then they put up our most degenerate images. This is what the black media, this is what the, or at least the platforms, I'm not gonna say black media because of course we have our black media that we follow, but when it comes to the platforms of the media, look, the popular ones that we patronize, what are they showing on it? What are they showing? A bunch of degeneracy, right? Now we shouldn't be perpetuating none of that degeneracy at all. Hey, we're gonna get into that coming soon, family. It's coming up. It's coming up. It's in this chapter. I'm just doing one chapter today. We're doing one chapter. These is long chapters in this book. But we're gonna get into that to the behaviors. That's coming up, man. He's talking about these damn monopolies. He going on and on about these monopolies though. But look, hey, I gotta give you everything, man. I'm not giving you parts of it. I ain't trying to tailor a certain narrative to you. I'm giving you I'm giving you what the man says, and I'm also adding my commentary on top of it. Right? That's what we doing. All right. In 1999, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, otherwise known as NAACP, led a complaint and threatened a boycott against all the networks for the television season that lacked so-called minority characters in the program lineup. The network's owner did not forget that blacks or FBAs existed. They chose not to include them. In matters like this, FBAs negotiate from a position of weakness because they own no networks and very few television stations. I don't know if we own any television stations nowadays, right? I think the biggest one was BET. We made BET hot. We made that hot back in the day. I mean, Homeboy sold it. They sold it for $1. We ain't got a station yet, I don't think, man. And if we do, it's probably some old garbage. Probably promoting some old bullshit, and there's probably some kind of immigrants behind it. Okay, in the case of the complaint, the NAACP would have come closer to addressing a core black problem if it had challenged the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, and the executive branch of the government to demand greater black FBA ownership of television outlets. Without ownership, FBAs are unable to communicate with their own people without passing through and having the approval of non-black media owners. And since FBA issues tend to make whites feel guilty or threatened, white media only give FBAs access to their media when the issues are race neutral or relevant to the majority society. Yeah, we've seen that time and time again. Even when FBAs own media, they have impediments to programming and economic success. The few broadcast and print properties that are black owned are so dependent upon white advertisers for revenue that programming from a black perspective is often muted to avoid disapproval as too black Okay, anything that is all black is too black. There are not enough black advertisers to support black media companies, which are an afterthought with white advertisers. If they do elect to purchase advertising from black owned media outlets, it will be safe programming. They avoid supporting black media when it reflects racial controversy. No other group has such social prohibitions. Nearly 99% of all white Americans live in all white communities, work in all white offices, conduct business with white customers, and send their children to all white schools. White print and business media outlets target nearly 100% white audiences, but they are not criticized for being too white. Man, let me go back here. Where did it say? It says even when blacks own media, right, they have impediments to programming and economic success. I wanted to touch on that, right? Um, I want to talk about Tariq Nasheed here, right? Now, Tariq is on multiple platforms, right? I think his two top platforms that he really does his thing on is X, Twitter, right, and YouTube. As we've seen with Tariq Nasheed's or Tariq Radio's subscriber count over the years. And he mentions this all the time that he's shadow banned. Same thing with Professor Black Truth, the Black Authority. These guys be shadow banned where when they go live, people don't get notifications that they're going live. People somehow they get unsubscribed. They'll have subscribers and somehow the white owned platform will magically unsubscribe certain people or they'll lower their numbers down. You know what I'm saying? They do all that type of stuff to us. I've done live streams previously where I had my live stream cut off multiple times, and I don't even have a following. You see what I'm saying? It's the topics I'm talking about though that they don't like. I'm surprised they ain't messing with me now, man. But let me not jinx myself. Let me not jinx myself. Let's keep it pushing. Where's we at? Okay, even national political parties spend less with black media than they spend to reach other groups. According to the May 18th through May 24th, 2000 issue of the Challenger magazine, the Republican National Committee indicated it would spend $10 million in advertising with Hispanic media and $0 with black media in its 2000 presidential campaign. As late as 2 months before the polls opened, unofficial reports indicated that the National Democratic Party had yet to commit money to black media. White media monopolies go unchallenged, regardless of how frequently and unjustly black people are treated. The control of images we see by media and the corporations who buy advertising was demonstrated in Detroit, Michigan, at the premiere showing of the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, The Hidden Story, in spring 2000. The movie, produced by a home box office, tells the story of the 1921 racial assault that claimed the lives of approximately 600 blacks. FBAs, their homes and businesses were robbed, bombed, and burned by whites who admitted in the program that they were jealous of black people's economic success. Although this film is a poignant and important historical documentary, white businesses in the Detroit area refused to financially support its airing on the Wayne State University's campus. Speaking of the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, I did a video. I got a video. If you go to my videos tab, the last video I posted, which was back in late May, I believe, on the anniversary of the massacre, I released a video. It's a summarized version of a documentary that was released back in 2006. I want to say, called Before They Die or whatever, before they pass or whatever. I don't want to get demonetized here, but I want y'all to go check that video out if you can, family. If you're listening to me, man, click on that video, man. Give it a like, give it a comment. That video has been shadow banned. It doesn't get the impressions that the rest of my videos are getting. It's like limited reach or something. Like, 'cause I even tried to put some promotion behind it, and I was denied promotion for whatever reason. And it's like the access to it is limited for whatever reason. They banned in that video. Give that video a look, man. It documents a lot of the survivors of the Tulsa, Oklahoma race riot. Many of which have passed now. I think they pretty much have all passed, except for maybe two or three that may be left. But there's a lot of them that are still alive in that documentary, man. So give that video a like. I believe I titled it the Tulsa Massacre Survivors. All right. So go check that video out, man, because like I said, the YouTube has already kind of banned that and kind of buried it in the algorithm. They will not show that video. Matter of fact, to keep it all the way 1,000 with y'all, that was one of the reasons why I kind of fell back from the YouTube thing, because I was like heartbroken by that. I was really disappointed that they kind of shadow ban that video. Like, because there's a way that they can ban a video. They tell you when you upload it, it says, hey, this got too many restrictions, or for A, B, and C reason, they won't let me put the video up. But they allowed me to upload that video. I took whatever copyright issues that was on that video, I deleted it all. I took it all out. I chopped it up 1,000 ways, and they still shadow ban that video. So do me a favor, family. Go check that video out. It's a lot of information in that video, man. It's not nowhere else on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? It's the reason why I put it up there, because they don't have none of that, no scenes of that. I ain't found not a scene from that documentary in no other YouTube channel nowhere. But we got it right here on this channel, Foundational Black American History Reloaded. And I'm on a tangent right now. One thing, this channel name, family, the reason why I put that name up there was because that I have a lot of old footage, right? A lot of different old documentaries that aren't around no more, that was only on VHS, stuff like that, things that was on DivX and DVD that you can't really get access to. Some stuff is already on YouTube and certain platforms or certain channels, but a lot of it's not. You know what I'm saying? So I called it Reloaded because I'm putting up old footage on this channel and giving you the perspective of today's FBA delineation generation. When I made the channel, wasn't no other channel called Foundational Black American History, nothing. But I peeped maybe a month and a half to 2 months later, like there was this other channel that created, this other dude created a channel, Foundational Black American History. Now, I'm salty because I should have just took that name, right? Because it didn't exist, but I chose to put the Reloaded on there because I'm uploading old footage and I'm giving a different perspective on it. So I put Reloaded after it. This dude makes a Foundational Black American History channel, and he don't talk no history on this channel. I know y'all done seen him. He get views too. I don't know. His numbers is all that. He must be paying for top promo. And shout out to that brother. You know what I mean? He FBA brother or whatever. But I'm like, damn, why you call yourself Foundational Black American History? You don't talk no history on your channel. His whole channel was about tethers, and this South African was on a podcast in London and they made this comment about Black Americans. So I'm gonna make a 30-minute video on why this tether is a tether. And it's like, dude, why you call yourself a Black History channel? You talking about tethers all day. Where the history at? Let me keep it pushing, family. My fault for that little rant. All right, political and judicial monopolies, man. And like I said, shout out to that brother. You know what I'm saying? I don't got nothing against you. You FBA brother, I'm an FBA brother. I just don't understand why you took the Foundational Black American name and you don't talk no history. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. Let's keep it going, though. The nation's political and judicial systems are racial monopolies that form the superstructure of society. Those monopolies make nearly every political and legal issue about race a foregone conclusion. Politics and the court system tend to be more anti-black than the larger society. Legal justice has come to mean ensuring that blacks do not break the law while forcing them to cheerfully submit to whites breaking the law. Right? Although their population monopolies ensure that whites will always dominate and rule, racism within the political and legal systems guarantee Foundational Black Americans will rarely win. Thurgood Marshall, by his acts and omissions, was probably the only U.S. Supreme Court justice prejudiced in favor of Foundational Black Americans. However, outnumbered 8-1, his legal opinions had little real impact on race rulings. Conversely, Marshall's replacement on the United States Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas, seems most concerned about his acceptance by white society. In fairness to Clarence Thomas, Even if he were to begin acting as a responsible black man or FBA man, his vote would not change the way the U.S. Supreme Court works and rules. He too is outnumbered. Several justices were appointed when there were two litmus tests for any appointment to the Supreme Court. Number one, credible conservative views, and two, the willingness to avoid using the court to correct historical injustices, especially those committed against foundational black Americans. Michael Lind, in his book Up From Conservatism, shares a story that illustrates how bias against FBAs is institutionalized in the judicial monopoly. Lind says William Rehnquist, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, was ordered away from a polling place in Arizona in the 1950s because he was demanding that FBA voters be forced to prove they could read by reading the Constitution before being allowed to mark their ballots. Rehnquist passed a litmus test to President Reagan, who appointed him, along with his racial attitudes, Chief Justice of the highest court of the nation. In this position, his racial bias could infect courts' decisions throughout the nation. Any counter bias for foundational black Americans was nullified with Thomas's appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court. Consequently, judicial monopolies control the fate of FBAs in ways that are rarely beneficial. Research supports this premise. As late as the 1990s, nearly 60% of whites, Hispanics, and Asian Americans continue to perceive foundational black Americans as inferior, undeserving of justice, and innately criminal. Nowadays, we can throw the non-FBAs in there too. We can throw them in there too. They look at us the same way. All right. That's why we delineate. All right. That's why he keeps saying blacks. I'm trying to correct them. All right. Justice for, once again, blacks. I'll say justice for FBAs in a system that reflects such bias and indifference is virtually impossible. Whites maintain a monopoly on holding political office, whether FBAs vote or not. For example, increases in black voter registration and participation resulted in a 9,000% increase in the number of black elected officials, probably mostly non-FBA, right? Within the last 2 generations. Yet black public office holders still represent less than 1% of this nation's elected officials. The political and judicial systems are cornerstone institutions that whites monopolize, even as most people espouse belief in the colorblind myth. A monopoly on the elective and appointment process for public office will continue to place white males in control of 99% of all levels of government and legal systems. Whites in positions of power and authority have been conditioned by their experiences in American society to protect the status quo and the advantages of their own group self-interest. You hear that? Their own group self-interest. That's what we're all about right now. They instinctively reflect the mores of structural racism and the normal cause of behaving. The majority of whites who hold high positions in the political and judicial systems are descendants of white immigrants who entered this nation centuries after the ancestors of foundational black Americans. Though their ancestors were not in this country when foundational black Americans were enslaved and segregated, special admission status reserved seats of power for them in the judicial and political systems. It's the same thing they do with these immigrants now. They may not be white, but it's the same concept. It's the same concept. This nation's fundamental democratic values of inalienable rights and principles of fair play have yet to apply fully to FBAs. There is no credible evidence that whites understand the true nature of racism and its monopolies or are concerned about the negative impact of them on the life chances of foundational black Americans. Whiteness as a monopoly is a subconscious construct that promotes aversion to any form of blackness, especially within the political legal system. Whites tend to equate blackness to liberalism, which has to the effect of moving all the nation's political parties to racial selfishness. They stack the law enforcement and court systems with conservative officers and judges who are predisposed to anti-black feelings. The 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which was enacted solely for the equal protection of FBAs, is co-opted and used by the political system to maintain white dominance. By the virtue of black people's inherited disadvantages and whites' inherited life advantages, the races are locked into conflict and competition. These racial conflicts and the accompanying racial disparities cannot be eliminated by indifference or black leadership, or black leaders' accommodations. When black leaders accommodate and compromise, they lose respect and the black masses move no closer to the corridors of power and wealth. Moreover, whites find it easier to pacify blacks with symbolic rather than substantive political benefits and opportunities. This only further reinforces racial inequalities. Man, we've seen that over and over again, haven't we, family? We've seen that over and over again. We'd be pacified by some symbolic gesture instead of getting tangibles, instead of getting real resources and real policies that benefit us. Instead, they go put a black woman in on Supreme Court, and we supposed to go vote for him, right? Or they get a tether, go put him in as a president. We supposed to go vote for him because it's a tether. It's the first black. We supposed to go vote. We supposed to be happy with the first black in a white space. We still on that type time. We still on the integration thing, right? We still on the integration thing. We off that. We off that now. I don't care about the first black nothing. Because every time you get a first black in an all white location, they don't do nothing. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to hear about them not having no power. They ain't going to do nothing. So it don't matter that they there. And I'm not living vicariously through Barack Obama. That nigga, I ain't a hope, man. I ain't LGBT, you heard? So why I'm gonna live through him? Man. All right, man. Okay, we getting to the inappropriate behavior, family. We're almost there, man. Let's get it. This is the last part. This is the last part about these damn monopolies. The implication of monopolies, right? The advantages that flow to white society from various monopolies, the visible manifestations of racism, have yet to be weighted and analyzed to determine how they handicap and injure foundational black Americans in a competitive society. White monopolies guarantee white winners as if ordained by the gods. Few see their societal dominance as a persistent and fundamental injustice within American society. Racial monopolies adversely affect the welfare of blacks and further the best interests of the majority society. Within any marketplace, the majority society forces black competitors out of existence. This country's founders created a flawed system and political structure that only began to take on the appearance of a social democracy through the pain and suffering of the Civil War, Reconstruction, and the Black Civil Rights Movement. Everything that we've done, all FBA work, you heard? These national events were more symbolic rather than substantive for FBAs, and now the likelihood of ever catching up with the majority white population is extremely remote. Blacks, or FBAs, suffer too many wealth and resource power deficiencies after nearly 4 centuries of trying to climb a greased pole. After nearly 4 centuries of trying to climb a greased pole, many blacks, or FBAs, have given up hope of ever closing the inequality gaps. Structural racism and its monopolies have boxed and locked FBAs, but nothing created or constructed by mankind is perfect, including structural racism and racial monopolies. Myths of a colorblind, race-neutral society support racial monopolies. Public policies or programs that claim to be race-neutral or colorblind will not help foundational black Americans, but support the status quo and the prevailing inequalities. The dominant society uses its accumulated advantages to foster and provide even greater advantages for its members. However, with proper planning and preparation, Black America, foundational Black America, can compete and in some instances beat a monopoly. Let's look at 3 possible options that an oppressed group might use against the tyranny of a majority monopoly. The oppressed group can, number 1, revolt and engage in civil disobedience that brings political and economic reform or an entirely new government. Number 2, petition the government to intervene on its behalf and force a white monopoly to divest itself of some wealth, resources, and power. 3, construct alternative political and economic systems and monopolies based on its own group advantages within its own communities. I like number 3. I like all 3, to be honest, but I think we've tried number 1 and 2. We've tried number 1 and 2 1,000 times, right? You know what they say about doing something over and over again, expecting different results, right? You know what they say about that, right? They call that insanity. But number 3, right there, where it says number 3 right there, construct alternative political and economic systems and monopolies. based on its own group's advantages within its own communities, we ain't never tried that one yet. We ain't did that one yet. That's what we need to be doing. And to be honest, we kind of late in the game. We late for this shit. And the thing that pisses me off is that you got these influencers out here that could be pushing this message right now, right? I'm pushing it. I don't got that many people. I got a couple people. It's only a couple people in here listening. Only a couple people up in here. This is what they need to be talking about. But instead, they rather talk about an African booty scratcher in her car talking trash about, I don't know, talking trash about black women or something, FBA women or something. Or they want to talk about Mr. Mutombo and blah, 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 Mr. Mutombo and whatever they be talking about all day. 4-hour-long live streams about tethers talking trash on social media. This is what the FBA movement has turned into. This is what it's become. This is what it's become, bro. Real rap. The suggestions, let's keep it going. The suggestions in this book include all three options, but draw most heavily from numbers 2 and 3. Number 2, once again, petition government to intervene on its behalf and force a white monopoly to divest itself of some power of resources and wealth. We've tried that, but I guess, he's got some other strategies that's going to focus on that again. With carefully planned behavioral changes, blacks, FBAs, can compete and in some instances beat monopolies. The second impediment to the empowerment of Black America, foundational Black America, is just as prohibitive as the first impediment. All right. Now we're going to get into the second impediment, which is the inappropriate behavior patterns, right? Now, like I said, I haven't read this book in some years. So when I come across something that triggers me, I'm going to stop and I'm going to give my thoughts on it. How many more pages we got in this chapter, man? I think this chapter is almost done. Yeah, we got, okay, it's almost done. Yeah, they talk a lot about them damn monopolies. This is the bread and butter right here. This is the meat right here. This is the more important part right here, in my opinion. We're going to talk about these behavior patterns because a lot of the issues we have as FBAs are self-inflicted wounds. You know what I'm saying? That's the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. We want to blame tethers for everything. We want to blame white supremacy for everything. And yes, they are a problem. But we also have these behavior problems that we just want to ignore, right? And I'm pretty sure this is going to be the portion of the the portion of the live stream that's going to get the least amount of views. I already know when I see the data analytics, if there is going to be any type of steadiness throughout the live stream, this is going to be the portion where people are going to probably drop out. It's going to be the least amount of people want to watch. That's how FBAs are. Can't criticize no FBA. I'm about to be a tether now. They're gonna start calling me a tether when I give my opinions on this part right here. Here we go. The second impediment, inappropriate behavior patterns. The conditions of foundational Black Americans cannot be totally blamed on white society's structural monopolies. The second impediment to empowering foundational Black America is inappropriate behavior among members of its group. Their inappropriate behavior patterns stem from distorted vision. They are conditioned to be colorblind. They neither see nor want to be black. Blackness is not just skin color. It is more so an appropriate behavior pattern based upon a rational perspective. A perspective born out of a group's experiences and continuing dilemma. An erroneous perspective causes inappropriate behavior patterns. These behavior patterns de-empower rather than empower Black people or foundational Black Americans. In a society based on white superiority, it is inappropriate behavior when foundational Black Americans participate in their own subordination and exploitation. It is inappropriate behavior when their actions support the established racial hierarchy and encourage dependency on white society. The more a minority group, especially a planned Black minority, becomes dependent on the majority white society, the harder it is for the group members to differentiate who they are and behave in their own best interest. Their dependency distorts racial reality and causes many of them to live in a state of denial, tolerating and justifying why they are in an oppressed state. They are generally willing to accept their poor quality of life and avoid any form of competitiveness unless it is against members of their own group. Bruh, telling me that this ain't your typical FBA culture right here. That's typical FBA culture right there. Now, I'm gonna say FBA because I'm using FBA as an acronym for the entire racial ethnic group. I'm not talking about a group of people that's on Twitter. I'm not talking about a group of people that be on YouTube or whatever. I'm talking about the whole lineage, right? We talk about the whole whatever, however many 40 million plus of us there are in this country. That's typical nigga behavior, typical FBA behavior. This last sentence right here, man, it's like it sums it up so brilliantly. It says they are generally willing to accept their poor quality of life and avoid any form of competitiveness unless it is against members of their own group. Come on, man. That's Keisha culture. That's Pookie Ray Ray culture right there. Real rap. That's exactly what that is, man. I see it all the time. We see it in every inner city across this country where black folks is at. They only want to compete with each other. You want to fight against each other. You want to murder, shoot, and off each other. And you ain't got no smoke for nobody else. Everybody else gets a pass. And you fine with being poor and broke as long as you get as long as you get a little government check every month. You cool with it. You want to make sure you keep your income low so you can get your little government check and keep your little Section 8 housing. Yeah, all that's about to change. All that's about to change. The dude in the office right now, the orange man or whatever, he gonna make it so you have to be competitive. And yeah, you're gonna have to compete against your own people, but at least he getting out some of these buffers. He getting out the buffers. But we ain't gonna have to worry about them too much. He got them shook. A lot of them scared to come outside. You know what I'm saying? So let's keep it going, right? So there's categories of inappropriate behavior, right? There are many types of inappropriate behavior ranging from the classic Sambo. A Sambo is a black person who betrays his own race and gains personal profit, to a militant with an attitude of a blacker than thou arrogance. Inappropriate behavior is the manifestation of the intentional softening of the competitive impulse in an individual or group to the point that everything is turned upside down and backwards. The individual or group is inclined to compete amongst themselves and ally with outsiders rather than allying with members of their own group to compete against outsiders. That is the Democrat strategy right there. The Democrat strategy is that they want us to somehow ally with these other so-called minorities, right? To the benefit of everybody but us. You know what I'm saying? This is why the delineation thing is good. You know what I mean? It is good. And I understand these guys, these influencers are gonna keep pushing that for all the newcomers. When they come to the channel and they ain't never heard of FBA, they just found out about it, they gonna have to keep pushing delineation so that they understand it. I get it. I already get it. That's why I outgrew it. I can make my own content now. I'm gonna make my own content now. You know what I'm saying? But for everybody else who's still watching, who's still consuming, it's like, this is what we have to learn. Like, when it comes to our group, we've been on this race thing for so long. We look at it like our group is us, including all these newcomers. It's not the newcomers. It's not the Caribbeans. I'm sorry, it's not the Africans. Too many of them have proven that they are alone. They're with white society. Like they prove it all the time that they're down with white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? They're fine with it. We the only ones fighting against it. We the only ones fighting against it. So we gotta have ourselves. We gotta have the backs of each other. We don't need no outside groups. All right. So let's All right. Here we go. It says, what is even more troublesome? Okay. What is even more troublesome is that the inappropriate behavior teaches whites and others how to treat foundational black Americans. If foundational black Americans want to change how they are treated, they must change what they are teaching their competitors. Well, we're teaching our competitors, okay? Below, we will briefly discuss a few of the most common and destructive categories of inappropriate behavior. Okay, collusion with the competition. This type of behavior is visible in coalition building. It is without a doubt the most troubling for the race or the ethnic group. We ain't talking about the race. We ain't on race no more. Because it is a strategy used by so many members of the foundational black American leadership class. Although coalition building is a popular concept, coalitions almost always operate at the expense of foundational Black Americans. This is what the brother said 25, 26 years ago. This is what he said 26 years ago. Even though FBAs themselves are not organized and do not have stated group goals, coalition building encourages them to coalesce with other groups that do have articulated goals rather than organize their own group. Black participation gives credibility to strength, gives credibility and strength to ethnic, class, gender, disabled, and Spanish-speaking groups, some of whom compete openly with foundational Black Americans for wealth and power and openly oppose FBA gains. When FBAs participate in coalitions, they allow the unique status, history, and debt owed to FBAs to spread to all of the subgroups. Man, who's heard that before? I didn't heard that before. Oh, we all oppressed the same. This is what them Democrat voters always say. We're all oppressed. It's only the white man is the issue. I mean, come on, man. The white man definitely the issue, but you gotta understand that these other people that you look at as oppressed and they're your allies, they don't look at that white man the same way we do. We look at him like yeah, he the ops, he's the cause of all these issues. They look at him as a god. They want to be down with him. That's what these old folks don't get. That's why we against everybody. It's FBA versus everybody. We don't need none of these people. Fuck a coalition. What we need a coalition for when half the coalition is team white supremacy? What sense that make? I thought we against white supremacy. These other people not against white supremacy. Come on, let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it a buck, man. Especially them Hispanics, them Spanish speakers. Come on, man. They some of the biggest racists on the planet. Come on, man. Let's keep it real, man. Black and brown, man. If you don't miss me with that, man. All right. Okay, so it says, race is made synonymous with minority, and racism synonymous with any form of discrimination. These are gigantic distortions of reality and give fictional common ground for building coalitions between FBAs and any group that perceives itself as aggrieved. FBAs should not be against any group, but what political and economic benefits do they derive from coalitions with Asians, American Indians, Hispanics, women's, or gays that take Black problems, convert them into minority problems, then propose non-specific universal solutions? Propose non-specific universal solutions. Political coalitions created under the broad and ambiguous concepts of minorities, cultural diversity, and multiculturalism do not benefit foundational Black Americans as a group. In collusion with the competition, coalitions give foundational Black Americans a trickle-down political experience. They get what is left after gender, ethnic, religious, disabled, Spanish-speaking groups in the coalition receive what they want and need. Foundational Black Americans lose by default due to the inappropriate behavior of Black leaders who choose cross-group alliances, white approval, and corporate dollars at the expense of their own people. All right? That's the first issue that we got as far as behavior, right? The second inappropriate behavior is social etiquette. Let's get into the social etiquette part. Because I think this has gotten worse. He's talking about this from a lens of 2000. Of Y2K foundational Black America. I'm looking at it in post-COVID 2025 foundational Black America. Let's see what you're talking about. Behavior patterns in this category appear to stem directly from the old social or Southern racial etiquette. Though one of the major accomplishments of the Black civil rights movement of the 1960s was to modify some of the social etiquette that traditionally existed between Blacks and whites, many Blacks across America, especially in the South and Midwest, continue to honor old social customs. What are you talking about? They avoid situations that make them appear free, independent, and active in shaping their own lives. They are perfectly happy to go to work or to church, look at television, and then go to bed. They still know their place and know how to play get low. Get low, okay? To them, what happens to Black people locally or anywhere else is of little concern. They want to appear as good Negroes, content, happy, compromising, and non-competitive. A good Negro or safe Black person seeks approval of whites. These Blacks will neither speak up nor speak out on Black issues. nor will they defend against black injustice. Now, as we know, he's talking about people down south in the Midwest. Like, now I'm from up northeast. I'm from up north. I'm from Philly. Like, we don't, you know what I'm saying? We don't play them games in Philly. Like, I mean, I've lived in the South. You know, I'm in the South right now. I'm in Georgia right now, right? I've lived in Texas before. I mean, I kind of know what he's getting at, but at the same time, it's hard for me to accept it. But I'm gonna take the elder's words for it, man, because he specifically stated the Midwest and the South. All right, you know what I mean. Of course, he ain't going to bring up California, even though I say in 2024, 2025, the few black folks that's left in California, they on that same bullshit. I think he left out California then because it was 2000. He's still looking at Black Panther Party and whatever else happened back in the day in California, all the revolutionary type stuff that was going on back then. But nowadays, bro, it ain't even the white man got their foot on their neck in California. It's the Hispanics, it's the Mexicans that got their foot on their neck, and them they the same way now. They don't want no problems. They don't want no problems in Los Angeles County. Let's keep it a button. Black folks out there don't want no problems. So I'm gonna put it like that. And then of course up in the Northeast we got people like that too, but they tend to be tethers. Now he's not gonna speak on tethers in this book. Tethers wasn't a concept when this book was around. So he's talking about sambos and all that. We understand now that a lot of them are tethers, but that doesn't negate the fact that we got FBA sambos and sellouts and coons that have always been around. We've had them motherfuckers for centuries. What's funny to me is that these FBA content creators don't never talk about the domestic coons we have because we got a lot of them. They don't want to talk about them no more. They only want to talk about tethers. And then when they do get a domestic coon that comes across the feed, they still try to frame him as a tether. It's like, dude, that motherfuckers FBA, you talk about giving tether vibes. It's giving tether vibes. Like, what are you talking about, bro? That person clearly looks FBA, and I could tell the difference. We can tell the difference. We can tell the difference from facial features, swag, accents, everything, nigga. But you gonna tell me since this person talking crazy, talking like a coon, oh, it's giving tether vibes, bro. What? What? We not gonna hold ourselves accountable at all? Sheesh. All right, man. Let's keep going, man. Let's keep going. Avoiding blackness. Now, this is something. Avoiding blackness. We definitely going to get into tether talk right here. But like I said, we'll see how he frames it. And like I said, I'll give my commentary. Okay, it says blacks who exhibit this behavior avoid association with any form of blackness. They want to be the first or only black person in an integrated company, school, neighborhood, association, or political party. Like whites, many blacks gauge this amount of black presence, and anything that is not integrated or is all black is too black and politically incorrect. This phenomenon is peculiar to blacks. There is no similar expression that someone or something is too Jewish, too Indian, too white, or too Asian. Avoiding blackness allows many to live in a state of denial until the reality roosters come home. A true story illustrates how blacks try to avoid blackness. A woman who had grown up in a conservative Midwestern town was proud of the respect and status whites accorded her family. She was proud that she and her children were economically better off than most blacks in town, and her husband was well known in white political circles. However, her world came tumbling down one day when she was in a grocery store with her young daughter. When leaving the grocery store with her young daughter, when leaving the store, they came face to face with a white mother and daughter. The young white child pulled on her mother's dress and said, "Look, mommy, there are some niggers." The white mother pulled the little girl close and whispered, "Hush, honey, those are Wilson niggers." The friend who related the story was the young black daughter. She said that was the first time in her life she knew that regardless of her family's economic status or prominence, she was not allowed to escape her skin color. While blacks do not mind being identified with particular sports teams or political parties, many reject being identified with skin color terms, the skin color team that God had assigned them. And he's saying skin color. We talking about ethnicity. We talking about lineage. All right. They don't want to be assigned with the lineage. That's why they'll say black or Pan-African, or they look into Africa. These people that only want to look to Africa, and they want to, They hate being Black American because I guess because what we went through and what our ancestors went through and what we go through. When we should find strength in that, like real rap, we should find strength in that. I think the white folks that they hate so much, they're more afraid of us finding strength in what we go through and what we've been through than feeling ashamed of it and wanting to not identify with it. That's what they want. They would rather want that. You see? This is what a lot of them old folks don't understand. That's why they don't get what we doing. They don't understand FBA. They don't get it because they're so ashamed of being Black American. You know what I'm saying? I had a talk with I'll keep it a buck. I had a talk with my mother the other day, man. I'll put it like this, right? My mother nowadays, because since I've been on this kick for so many years, she's kind of toned down her Democrat shilling or whatever. But she's definitely a loyal Democrat, even though she'll say that she's a registered independent now or whatever. Whatever. She only votes for the Democrats, right? And she hates everything about what's going on nowadays. And of course, I'm against immigration. She's all for immigration. She doesn't see the problem. I made a comment about hey mom, as an American citizen. As soon as I said as an American citizen, she cuts me off. Oh my God, I can't believe you said that. What do you mean? Oh, you said that like you're proud to be American. I'm like, what the hell? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, to keep it a buck, man, I'm not patriot. I'm not no patriotic type guy, but I'm an American citizen. It is what I am what I am. I'm proud to be who I am. And I'm telling her, look, you American too. Oh yeah, but I ain't proud to be American because of the racism and A, B, C, D, and third. Like, okay, like, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to tell her that the immigrants is a problem. No, the immigrants not a problem. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they don't understand the whole delineation thing. They don't understand it. They think we should still be Pan-African, even though we've been trying to be Pan-African for 100+ years. It don't work. It's a scam. It's a scam. And these the same type of people that'll never go to Africa, never want to go nowhere. They don't never want to leave the country. You hate the country. You hate being American, but you won't leave. A nigga like me, I done lived abroad. I lived abroad. I mean, lived. I didn't just go visit. I didn't just go on vacation. I lived abroad. You see what I'm saying? So I know that I know that as being American from living abroad. It's like, nigga, I'm American 100%. Nigga, I'm not African. You know what I'm saying? I'm North America. I got a U.S. passport. Like, all my family born here, died here, fought in wars here. Come on now. What you mean? And I still don't give a fuck about, you know what I mean? Like, I would still leave this country. I ain't knowing the type of time, like, with Tariq be pushing this whole, well, we need to just stay here or whatever. I'm more on some Philip Scott type shit where it's like, bro, if I got the means to go, I'm going to go. I'm going to bounce. Fuck, I'm going to stay. What I'm going to stay here for? We got a better life outside of here, man. But let's just keep it going before I go and rant. So let's keep it going. Avoiding blackness is counter to the way out groups respond. They exhibit an increased sense of group consciousness and close their ranks, right? They gatekeep. They create associations, organizations, and businesses dedicated to whatever characteristics others dislike. For instance, if Jews are persecuted because of their religion, they protect and strengthen themselves by building Jewish businesses, organizations, tight-knit communities. They build Jewish synagogues that teach Jewish culture, history, and religion. They help build and support the Jewish state of Israel. Women who feel marginalized by the system because of their gender respond by building women's organizations and businesses to promote women's issues. The gay community builds gay organizations, businesses, and tight-knit communities. Asians respond to this type of adversity by building businesses, organizations, and tight-knit communities around their Asian culture. When whites say they despise black people, blacks adopt the same attitude. They imitate whites and run from blackness, which should serve as a rallying point around which to build defenses. When blacks, FBAs, run away from themselves and avoid their own skin color, heritage, history, and other members of their race or ethnic group and lineage, when you talk about race, they become vulnerable and defenseless. They cannot protect themselves. Okay? That's a major problem that we have. You know what I'm saying? We don't build nothing for ourselves. And if we do get to building something, we want to make it inclusive of everybody but white folks. It's like we want everybody to be a part of it but the white folks. But all them other people, they all down with whiteness. They all down with white supremacy. So we're effing ourselves over. And then even if we don't want to include it for all the other people, we still want to just make it open to all black people. And then you got that 20 to 25% of our population that's on that tether shit. That's immigrants who only care about their particular ethnic group, right? Everybody's on their own ethnic group. Everybody looks out for their own ethnic group but us. Like, we're starting to do it now. FBA's doing it, but to keep it 100, family, like, the people who are actively have this conscious mindset, we are still the minority of the foundational black American overall population. We're still the minority. We're like 10-15% maybe, which is decent. That's decent enough to make actual change. We see we are making change, but we need the whole 100% of foundational black America to be on this type time. And what it might take a generation or two for it to happen, but what I will say is that focusing the majority of the attention on tethers is not going to help us. Having 4-hour-long live streams talking about a random tether, random African woman talking shit in her car is not helping us move forward. Period, point blank. Nigga, I had to tune out of them Twitter spaces with Tariq, man. It's a lot of buffoonery he be doing on there. You know what I'm saying? He'll get somebody, Tariq could get somebody come up on that stage and spit some real G stuff, like, as long as it's not one of his everyday, well, he got like a cohort of people that he always brings up, right? But if it's a new person that ain't part of his clique that comes up talking some real stuff, he'll cut them off so quick, man. He just cut them off too, like, just cut them off. Like, they'll be talking, oh yeah, good point, just cut them off, answer it, move on. He'd get a white person go up there and have a 50-hour-long dialogue with a suspected white supremacist, right? He'll have a 30 to 45-minute dialogue with a Nigerian tether. But then when you get an FBA brother who's not part of his cohorts, who's not, your everyday names, you get a random dude who pops up, he don't let a nigga talk. He don't even let him talk. I mean, I tried to get on a couple of Tariq Twitter spaces, man. I guess he must have went to my page and seen some of the comments I made. He don't never bring me up. It was one time, the first time he tried to bring me up, I don't know if it was a glitch or whatever that occurred, but you know how sometimes he brings somebody up and the people don't be speaking. They be trying to speak, bro, but it be something going on there where, the audio ain't going through. I don't know if he's doing it. I don't know if it's Twitter. I don't know what the issue is. But sometimes he bring people up and nobody comes up, oh, I'm going to give you 10, 15 seconds and we're going to move on. Then he move on. Now, he did that to me the first time or whatever. Every other time I've tried to get up there with him, he don't even acknowledge my hand when I put my hand up. Everybody raise your hand if you want to get up. I raise my hand, got my hand raised the whole Twitter space. That nigga will ignore me. Because he probably know, he probably done seen what I got on my page. He know I ain't for the bullshit. So, hey, that's why I said I don't know what that nigga be on now. I don't know what he on. But like I said, I followed Tariq for a long time, way before he even got on the political thing. And you know what I'm saying? Like, even before that, I was following him. Nowadays, bro, I don't know what that nigga be talking about, man. It be a lot of just nonsense. A whole lot of nonsense, bro. So let's just keep it going, though, man. So we're going to talk about white ice, nigga. White ice is colder, all right? We're going to say another category of inappropriate behavior is the persistent belief that white ice is colder. Foundational Black America is conditioned by family, school, and all social institutions to believe that whites are inherently superior. Although there have always been blacks or FBAs who try to disabuse other FBAs of this belief, their efforts have had limited effect. The superiority quality of the white man's ice remains a commonly accepted belief and expression in foundational Black America. I am a witness. In the mid-1970s, I actually saw a real-life display of this inappropriate mindset and behavior. Standing with a friend in front of his office building in Tallahassee, Florida, I saw a black man drive up to a black-owned grocery store. He got out of his car and walked over to the ice machine. He picked up several bags of ice, examined them, and put them back into the ice machine. then walked across the street to a white-owned liquor store. There, he went to the ice machine, took out 2 bags of ice, he examined them, then went to the drive-through window to pay for them. My friend and I were so struck by the behavior that we asked him why he rejected the ice at the black store but purchased the identical brand from the white-owned store. He said, "I don't like Mr. Brown's ice. It's too lumpy. Jack's Liquor's ice is better." That day, I learned that not only was white ice colder, but apparently smoother to at least one black man. Inappropriate behavior has become deeply rooted in the psyche of Black America, or foundational Black America's dialectic type of reasoning. If whites touch it, make it, sell it, repair it, or talk about it, only then is it acceptable to foundational Black Americans, or blacks in general. Let's just say blacks in general. He says blacks. I'm gonna keep it at blacks because it's the same thing for these tethers, right? But on an even deeper level, Black inappropriate behavior seems to suggest that a significant number of blacks place more value on being alive than the conditions under which they live. Eradicating these self-depreciating habits and learned inappropriate behavior patterns begins with offering Black people new information, new political and economic goals, and new social psychological models, and new hope. All right, man, we're gonna wind this down, man. It's the third impediment, man. No plan for empowerment. The third impediment, okay. Through the years, blacks and whites alike have called for blacks to organize and help themselves rather than depending on whites. As early as the 1860s, Albion W. Torgey, a visionary abolitionist, prophesied that neither the enactment of laws nor appeals to the majority society's conscience would reverse the tide of white racism or lift black people. Torgey believed that the solution to the nation's race problem rested in blacks becoming more independent, exhibiting greater militancy and self-assertion. Where were we? Yeah. Torgey was so committed to those beliefs. Hang on, family. My apologies. Torgey was so committed to those beliefs that even as a white man, he fought the conservative philosophies of Booker T. Washington, a black man. Torgey tried to convince Washington that foundational Black Americans would never gain political or economic parity in America until they organized themselves and pursued a course toward economic justice. A century later, a national commitment to economic justice for FBAs still has not been made. Social integration and civil rights remain the foremost issues. Foundational Black America needs a national plan and knowledgeable, committed leadership to guide it toward group empowerment and economic justice. PowerNomics is a national plan and requires institutional leadership to implement it. It is reverse social engineering. The sole purpose of PowerNomics is to unleash the economic and political potential of foundational Black America by addressing the historical, structural, economic inequalities between the races, lineages, ethnic groups, and the self-defeating inappropriate behavior patterns of foundational Black Americans by the year 2005. Wow, okay, 20 years ago. So we supposed to have done all this shit. We supposed to correct all this 20 years ago. We ain't did nothing. All right, now that the need for empowerment has been established, the remaining chapters and appendices of this book explain PowerNomics' plan and how to achieve Black empowerment, or foundational Black American empowerment. All right, now that's the end of chapter 1, family. I'm not going to go no further than that today. I'll come back on another day. You know what I'm saying? I'll put up a meme or whatever, a schedule where I'll get into chapter 2, and then we'll continue till we finish this book. I don't know, maybe in a day or two I'll get on it, man. I'll see how I feel or whatever. So far, like, some of my comments on chapter 1, I ain't gonna talk too much about the monopoly stuff, man. He went in on that, man. We understand that the whites dominate everything, bro. We get that part. My thing is about the behaviors, and of course the fact that we don't have a plan. Like, the one plan we got now is, all right, we delineating. We've been doing that for a while. I'm thinking the next step needs to be, where are we going? When we gonna start putting our own candidates in office? Like, why we ain't put Marcel in office yet? Why didn't Marcel win? who's the next Marcel Dixon? Like, who else is about to get into these politics, man? And that's not going to be in it for corporate dollars. You feel me? You got to be in it for the love of your people. That's the major issue, man. When these guys, when your Tariq Nasheeds and your Philip Scotts and all these people that they get on their podcast and be like, where is the black political class and where is the FBA political class, nigga? It don't exist, man. Y'all crying for this, man, but it don't exist. And ain't nobody encouraging the next generation of no Johnny Cochrans out here. Nobody's encouraging that. You see what I'm saying? Nobody's encouraging blacks to go get law degrees and go fight for your own people. If anything, foundational black Americans are incentivized and motivated for personal gain to get up out their own situation. Ain't nobody trying to do nothing for the community at large, man. We all struggling out here. You know what I'm saying? So when they get the crying and begging for black lawyers to step up and do some pro bono type shit, bro, ain't nobody about to step up for no pro bono work. We struggling out here, man. We need money. You see what I'm saying? Now, granted, we do have the ability to crowdfund and do all those type of things, but I've never seen anybody propose that. Anybody with a following propose that. When they got a following, they do crowdfunding and kickstarts for their own projects, right? They do it for their own shit, right? Right? This is what we seen every time Tariq got a new documentary or whatever. Yeah, people come out and get the donating and all that. They do that for that, right? Because it's all about entertainment. It's all about feeling good. But when it come time for, hey, there was an injustice done out in Cincinnati, Ohio, where are the black lawyers at? Ain't nobody showing up because where the money at? You see, where the black lawyer want to get paid, bruh. Ain't nobody go to law school and take on student loan debt just to die broke. You know what I'm saying? Johnny Cochran was a millionaire. Johnny Cochran had hella money, but he was out there representing celebrities and stuff like that. We trying to get people to represent the average everyday FBA. And the average FBA is broke, nigga. Let's keep it real. Niggas is broke. So that's behavior we gotta change. We gotta change our mindset to it's to a point where we love ourselves first and we love our lineage and ethnic group, like, you feel me? And we gotta want the best for everybody. And that's gonna include men and women coming together, forming families. I don't know if that's possible at this point. You feel me? Like, to keep it a buck, I don't know if that's possible. The only way that's going to be possible is through forced government policies. That's going to take away certain privileges and rights of some people, and that's going to force them to want to cooperate, right, and work with other people. Now, I'm not going to sit here and talk about who's at fault for who and who doing what, but we know that there's a segment of the foundational black American population that does get certain privileges, not rights, certain privileges that the other doesn't get at all, right? And that other group that doesn't get these privileges are looked down upon. They looked at as no good, ain't shit, and they not needed, right? They not needed. So what the issue is that we're gonna have to have a change of a mentality amongst a certain segment of our population. And even if they change their mind, for me personally, it's a little bit hard to accept it because, hey, you only changing your behavior because you lost your privileges. You lost your little voucher. You lost your EBT card. Now you want to come work with me and want to build something with me. But when you had all your advantages and you was independent, so-called, you didn't need me, remember? I wasn't shit, remember? So you're going to have a lot of brothers that's on that type of time. And so that's why I'm like, man, hey, and like I said, like we just read in chapter 1, Dr. Claude Anderson said we should have implemented these policies 20 years ago. And he said if we didn't do it by 20 years ago, we would be a permanent underclass in this country. It's 2025, man. We trying. There's a minority of us that are trying. But ain't we about 20 years too late, according to Dr. Claude Anderson. And us coming together, if it's only going to be out of necessity because a certain segment of the population has lost their jobs and lost their privileges or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Then it's not genuine. You see what I'm saying? It's not genuine. The coming together is not genuine, because as soon as we get another kind of party in office and they give you all your privileges back, then you don't need us, and then you want to break up families again. Then you want to be independent and do compound living and all that other goofy shit y'all be talking. See? So we'll see, man. Like I said, me, I'm trying to figure out a way to get the hell up out this country. Now, I've already done left and came back a couple times, man, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, this country ain't all that, man. I don't care what nobody say. Yeah, we built it. Ancestors built it. Everybody here, yeah, it's true. But I've already experienced life outside of this country, and I've lived better. As a foundational Black American, I get way more respect outside this country. Like, let's be real. Anybody who's traveled, right? Anybody who's ever traveled outside this country for an extended period of time. I ain't talking about you did 3 days and 4 nights in fucking Cabo. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about you really traveled. You know what I'm saying? You was on the local bus. You was on the chicken bus or whatever with the locals and all that. If you done did that, man, you know what I'm talking about. You know that American dollar go 10 times, 50 times, depending on what country you at, go 1,000 times longer elsewhere. Where here they keep raising up, the inflation keeps getting higher and higher, and it keeps getting harder and harder to live up here. But if you leave here, it's a whole different experience. I know. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't on that type of time. I'm not one of these people that's going to say, oh man, we going to just stand here and fight all the time. Like, dude, miss me with that shit, bro. I'm about to go do me elsewhere. You see what I'm saying? I'm about to go do me elsewhere. I'm not liking what they're doing out there in DC right now. You see what I'm saying? I think that's the beginning of something. What's going on in DC with the National Guard and all that, I really believe that's just the beginning. I think that's gonna translate and go to other countries, go to other cities as well. I think what that might be, low key, is a smokescreen too. It's what I think he's doing with the National Guard in DC right now. First off, they're experimenting in DC. It's DC. They're going to do DC. They're going to do DC first. It's going to migrate. They might go to Baltimore next, right? Philly is probably on the list coming up. Chicago, definitely on the list. And what I think they're doing is they're going to do sweeps within the Black community. And I think low key, what they're not putting out there is that they're looking for these Black illegal immigrants. And that's what they're going to go get, but they also going to go lock up some niggas if they get a chance to. If they can lock up some brothers too, they're going to lock up brothers too. We already know this. They going to lock up sisters, because a lot of you sisters is y'all just out of control nowadays. We all see body cam footage. Y'all out of control. They're going to lock up the sisters too. But I think what they really trying to do is go after Black immigrants and Black illegal immigrants. And like I said, in the meantime, if some Black folks, if some FBAs get caught up in the mix, so be it. That's how they look at it. So be it. I did a live stream about 2 months ago or something that didn't get a lot of traction, for obvious reasons. But I'm gonna encourage y'all to go check it out. It's that live stream I did about tips for the FBA family, and what is it called? It's like tips for the FBA family in the era of mass deportations or something. And I talked about all the different issues that could arise for FBAs with the whole deportation system thing going on. So while this is going on in DC, while they're doing sweeps and they locking up brothers, and I think the ultimate goal is to get Black illegal immigrants who are spread out amongst our community. And if they can get some Pookies and Ray Rays and some thugs and some gang bangers off the streets and these YNs off the street, they're going to get them off the street too. The issue that the FBA criminal class is going to have is when you're locked up in that system and certain errors, I'm using quotes here, certain so-called errors can occur where all of a sudden your citizenship may not be recognized. And if you ain't got somebody there vouching for you and backing you up, nigga, they'll put that ice deterrent on your ass real quick. And that's not to say you can get deported. I'm not saying that, but hey, it's not outside of the realm of possibility. That's all I'm going to say. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, you might be able to come back and get a bag. But is it worth it? Just like I told brothers in that live stream, bro, if you want some illegal criminal activity type shit under this administration that's going on right now, you might want to fall back with all that criminal activity. You know what I'm saying? Because with this administration, I think they want to hand out football numbers, and if they can get some of us up out of here, they're gonna try to get us up out of here, bro. So so once again, man, I encourage you all to go check out that live stream, tips for the FBA family in the era of mass deportations. Also check out that last video I posted about the Tulsa massacre survivors, because they definitely been shadow banning and limiting the reach of that particular video for whatever reason. They not letting that video really get no shine. So go check that joint out, man. Because like I said, that footage and those interviews and some of that stuff is not seen nowhere else on YouTube. You ain't gonna find it nowhere else. So go check it out, man. Go give it a like, leave a comment, hit that subscribe button if you ain't subscribed. I want y'all to have a wonderful Sunday. Like I said, I'm down here in the deep south right now. I'm in Georgia. What is it? 2:00 in the afternoon. It's flaming out here. It's flaming out here. But I think I'm gonna head down Jacksonville. I'm gonna head down Jacksonville in a little bit, man. So if anybody down Jacksonville, shout out to you in Jacksonville. Shout out to the whole Savannah, Georgia. Shout out to Hinesville. Shout out to my peoples up there in Philly. Shout out to Jersey, Delaware. Shout out to the whole tri-state, man. I'm gonna holler at y'all.